everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
My Hero Academia, The Beginning Without an End. Chapter 66 to 82, A Different Justice. 1,798 words. The students rushed to the edge of the roof and looked down. From the dust and smoke below, something massive began to rise. Metal twisted and fused together. A gigantic monster assembled itself from wreckage and debris. Mina Ashido stared wide-eyed. No way. He survived that. Tenya Ida looked to All Might urgently. What should we do? All Might answered, nothing. You have already done your fair share tonight. He stepped forward slightly. Remember, this island is full of heroes. Leave it to them. Trust that they will win and stop the villain. Inside the tower, Momo Yaoyorozu felt the structure tremble beneath her feet. Another explosion echoed somewhere below, but she did not allow herself to dwell on it. Whatever is going outside no longer mattered in that moment. Junsei did. She needed to find him. She hurried down the stairs, descending one floor at a time. She could hear steady footsteps below her. By the time she reached the 190th floor, she finally caught sight of him ahead. Junsei, please wait. He did not stop. They don't want the secret to be out, he said calmly. I know. Momo faltered for half a step before catching up. No one should be able to do that, he continued. Taking a loan is already bad enough. Take what? She demanded, frustration slipping into her voice. What are you talking about? You need to explain it for us to understand. He answered with a single word. Life. Momo frowned. Life again? What do you see that the rest of us don't? Please tell me so I can understand why you act like this. You murdered someone in cold blood. You risked the lives of people. If I wasn't on that roof, you wouldn't have come to help. Her voice tightened, but she forced herself to continue. Only a villain, a monster, would act like that. But I know you're not that. So help me understand. Junsei slowed slightly, though he did not look at her at first. From your perspective, he said after a moment, I am bad, even evil. But to me, the heroes you look up to are the monsters. The people you want to save are the real evil. He finally glanced at her. You judge people by their actions toward other humans. I judge them by their intent toward life. Another explosion boomed from outside. Junsei reached the next floor and stepped into a long, wide hallway. At its far end, broad windows stretched from wall to wall, overlooking the island. He continued walking toward them. Momo hurried after him. Wait. What does that mean? When a human kills something, Junsei said evenly, life transfers to the human forcefully. Their killing steals from the world and ruins nature. He glanced back at her. When humans die, the life they stole returns to the world. He did not say, when they are killed, as he knew she wouldn't accept such a notion. Momo absorbed that quietly before asking, is that something you can feel? Or see? Yes. They walk side by side now, the windows drawing closer. You have no stolen life on you, he continued. Most people carry a faint layer around them. Heroes have a significant amount compared to others. His expression hardened faintly. But All Might was a beacon. It shows how much death he has caused. Momo shook her head. That can't be right. I always thought humans couldn't tell or feel life, Junsei went on, as if she had not spoken. That they took it instinctively, without realizing it. That they have no control over it. But today I learned I was wrong. All Might had some way to transfer it along with his power to someone else. His voice lowered. So how long has this been happening? How much have they twisted life and moved it around? Momo hesitated. Her thoughts were racing, but she forced herself to respond carefully. But is it that bad? The world is still functioning. And even if it does something, All Might has done so much good. Junsei asked quietly, good to whom? She opened her mouth to respond, but he continued. To the world. Or to the humans who he enjoys feeling grateful toward him. That's not fair, she said quickly. All Might isn't like that. He genuinely wants to help people. Junsei stopped walking. They were only a few steps from the windows now. He turned to face her fully. If you are hurt, he said, voice steady, I will not feel your pain. If I decide to cut off your finger and feed it to ants, what would you think? Momo stiffened. You are alive and functioning. I cannot feel your pain. But I was good to the ants. Am I a good person for helping the ants by harming you a little? Or am I bad for hurting you? This is not the same, she protested. To me it is. His eyes did not waver. Humans are the monsters of this earth. It does not matter if they label themselves heroes or villains. They are all the same. You're human too, Momo shot back. A faint tension crossed his face. I hate that I was born into this body, he replied. That I have to live among them. That I must watch what they are doing to life. He turned away from her and resumed walking the last few steps toward the window. Momo followed, unwilling to let the distance grow again. So what are you going to do, she asked. Go around hurting people. Risking lives. I don't know what I should do, Junsei admitted. At some point, all I wanted was to live peacefully in the forest. Then I thought I found my purpose, but now I realized I strayed away from both. He reached the window and looked out. Seeing the others like that woke me to the reality of my situation. Momo didn't understand what others were speaking of. Below them, heroes swarmed a gigantic metal figure, and flashes of quirks lit the battlefield as they fought to stop it. Junsei watched in silence for a moment before speaking again. Humans fighting humans to take from each other, and from everything in this world. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. How do I stop them? What should I do? I can't do it alone. Momo stood at the edge of the window and looked at the chaos below. The villain, encased in his massive metal body, rampaged not far from the tower. She watched as the enormous monster hero, Godzilla, was sent crashing into a nearby building by the villain, turning it into rubbles. Junsei continued speaking, this is a fake island, there are no animals, no trees. But if this were anywhere else, this fight would have caused massive death to creatures other than humans like trees and insects. Would humans care about that? Perhaps only for the money they've lost, not for the life that was taken unfairly. Momo frowned, her voice hesitant. Because we can't feel what you feel. But we know right from wrong. Most people won't hurt cats or dogs for no reason. Junsei's gaze stayed on the island below. Yes. Many of the humans kill out of fear and ignorance, but that does not make it any less wrong. Some will listen and try to do better, like Kimmy, he said, his voice flat, others see life and creatures as lesser. When all they have comes from the life they stole, isn't that unfair? Another explosion rang out from below. The giant metal monster barreled toward the residential sector, scattering debris in its wake. Momo could not tear her eyes away. It will reach the scientists' families at this rate. Yes, Junsei replied, voice even. They are too weak to stop it. Momo hesitated, her voice trembling slightly. You can help. You can stop that thing, can't you? You are almost as strong as All Might. Junsei's expression remained unchanged. Yes. But I don't want to. You see people as evil, Momo pressed. People who take life unfairly. But you can be better. You can help them understand what they are doing wrong. Junsei's eyes flicked briefly to her. Okina said something similar. Momo blinked. Who? Principal Nizu, Junsei said simply. But I can also let them kill each other. Fewer humans mean less harm to the world. Humans killing humans, and it has nothing to do with me. Perhaps centuries, even thousands of years from now, no human would be left to see the sun rise. As if mocking his words, the first rays of sunlight appeared on the horizon, illuminating the island in gold. Momo's voice was firm. This is wrong. The way you think is wrong. Junsei's gaze remained on the horizon. Humans want to take. They want to achieve their desires. I want to be alone, and I want the world to be free. Balanced and whole like it was once. She fell silent for a moment, weighing her words. I know what you are saying is wrong, but I have no words to convince you otherwise. But please, just this once, help stop that villain before innocents and children die. I won't ask this again. Junsei's eyes shifted to hers, glowing faintly blue. Only this once, he said. He waved his hand. The glass in front of him shattered completely. He leapt from the tower, propelling himself straight toward the villain. Down below, the villain had changed. His skin had turned a deep, unnatural red. His eyes glowed a full, pupilless crimson, and his hair pointed skyward. He no longer spoke. He no longer thought. David Shield's device had pushed him beyond reason. Now he was a mindless, unstoppable force, destroying everything in his path. The heroes fought with all their strength. But their coordinated attacks barely slowed him, none of them were among the top combat heroes. And the island itself seemed to become part of the monster's rampage. All Might, the only hero capable of matching this threat, was nowhere to be seen. The giant, hulking figure advanced on the civilians. More than half of the heroes had already been defeated. Hope began to waver in the minds of the remaining few. Then, a streak of blue and white cut across the sky. It struck the giant's head, producing a thunderous explosion, as the metal shattered in a shower of sparks and debris. For a moment, the heroes looked up, expecting All Might to have arrived. But when the dust cleared, they saw a white-haired boy standing among the ruins, his eyes glowing a piercing blue. In his hand, he held the headless and lifeless corpse of the villain. Chapter 67, The Point of No Return. 1807 words. The moment Junsei returned to Japan, he was met with the legal machinery of Japan. His actions during the villain attack were treated as a major crime. They were all listed in an extremely bad light. He had used his quirk without authorization. He had killed 2 villains intentionally before dozens of witnesses. Worse, his violent escalation had nearly provoked the villains into attacking civilians directly. His clear intent as portrayed by the witnesses was damning to say the least. Even though everything had occurred outside Japanese territory, he was still required to answer for it. Normally, individuals under the age of 20 who committed crimes were processed through family court, where rehabilitation was emphasized over punishment. But Junsei's case did not fit the definition of juvenile misconduct. The confirmed deaths and the international implications of his reckless behavior elevated the case. The decision was made to transfer him to criminal court within 48 hours of his return to Japan. And that decision ensured the press would not look away. He was already known as the UA student who had injured All Might during the sports festival. The same student who had defeated the hero killer. The one surrounded by inconsistent rumors about his relation to All Might. On Island, he had once again stood at the center of catastrophe. His conduct during the incident could be described as criminal without a doubt. Yet when the villain leader had transformed into a rampaging monstrosity, and the assembled heroes failed to stop him, and civilians were about to be harmed, Junsei had descended from the sky and ended the threat instantly. That contradiction interested the public more than the crime itself. It also raised a dangerous question. When the metal giant advanced and heroes fell, the symbol of peace had not appeared. Why? What had he been doing? The only confirmed information is that he was on the island and nearby. So his absence reopened speculation that his injury from months prior had been far worse than officially stated. The doubt about the symbol of peace state returned stronger than before. Another development intensified the scrutiny. the principal of UA, Nizu, had decided that he would stand by his student in court. That single announcement ignited further speculation. Did UA see extraordinary potential in Junsei? Were they willing to defend him despite the deaths tied to his actions? Or was there something about him the public did not understand? This added to the speculation that UA staff saw Junsei as a possible replacement for All Might. And if All Might's state was as bad as suspected, then that was pretty much confirmation. 10 days after I-Island, the trial date arrived. Most citizens did not care for the details. They wanted a verdict. Yet a few thousand chose to watch the proceedings, curious to witness how this anomaly of a student would be judged. On the morning of the trial, Junsei arrived at the courthouse in Tokyo accompanied by Momo and Sai. Inside, they found Principal Nizu already waiting. The gravity in his eyes can't be overstated. Beside him stood Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead, dressed in an uncharacteristic suit, neat hair, a black case in his hand that Nizu had prepared in advance. "This is a serious matter," Nizu said without preamble. "Do not say or do anything that will incriminate you further. The situation is already bad enough." Junsei's response was flat. "I am tired." Nizu paused. Since Junsei's return from I-Island, something had shifted. Nizu could feel the anger burning inside Junsei. He suspected that something on the island had affected Junsei's mentality, and his actions and aggressiveness could be tied to that. But without him choosing to speak, there was no way to figure it out. "Please," Nizu continued. "Do not do anything in there that cannot be undone. I do not want this to reach a point of no return." Nizu feared how this case could develop. To him, Junsei's simple sentence was a bad omen of his current state of mind. Aizawa's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied Junsei. Momo and Sai stood quietly nearby, their concern clear. Junsei appeared expressionless, as he always did. Yet there was an edge beneath the stillness, something colder than before. Momo felt it most clearly. Ever since that day on the tower, since she had heard him speak about humanity and life, she had not been able to dismiss the unease growing in her chest. He had sounded full of anger, hate and even despair. That made her fear what he could do if pushed. Inside the courtroom, Junsei sat beside Principal Nizu at the defense table. Across from them stood the prosecutor, confident and composed. Before them were 3 judges elevated behind the bench and 6 jurors seated to the side. The gallery behind was filled. Beyond the courthouse, thousands more streamed the proceedings live. The trial began in standard form. Opening statements were delivered. Charges were read aloud. Then came the evidence. The prosecutor presented video recordings captured on I-Island. The footage showed Junsei killing the 2 villains. It showed the headless bodies of his victims. When it was Nizu's turn, he did not attempt to deny what had happened. He argued self-defense. He argued lack of formal field training. He argued that Junsei had used excessive force out of inexperience and perceived threat. He emphasized that Junsei had disengaged once he confirmed the remaining villains would not act against him again. He reminded the court that Junsei intervened again only when the heroes were losing and civilians were in imminent danger. His actions were not lawful, Nizu said evenly, but they were effective. He ensured his own survival and preserved the lives of others. The prosecutor countered. The force used was intentional. Returning to kill the villain leader in front of assembled heroes was unnecessary. The professionals could have handled it. All Might would have arrived at any moment to resolve the situation. Nizu replied that Junsei acted on limited information. He had no guarantee of reinforcements. The giant had been advancing toward civilians. The scientists' families were at risk. Regardless of interpretation, the threat had ended because of him. The exchange continued relentlessly, all while Junsei listened. But his attention kept drifting. He thought of the animals in cages at the zoo. Of their acceptance of the state they were living in. Of the villains' and heroes' words and acts. Avokina standing next to him, using law and language to shield him from consequences he believed were unwarranted. What was wrong with prioritizing one's own life? No. Why was he here at all? How was he any different from the animals who accepted human control? He was tired of them. Tired of their greed disguised as virtue. Tired of their words. Tired of their contradictions. He was tired of it all. Without raising his voice, he spoke. Why am I here? The words were quiet, yet they caused the back and forth to halt. The prosecutor stopped mid-sentence. The judges turned their eyes toward him. Niza felt something drop inside his chest the moment Junsei opened his mouth. He looked at him, a silent plea in his gaze. The leading judge looked at him with a frown. You do not know why you are here. You are charged with multiple crimes, including unlawful use of a quirk and homicide. Junsei's expression did not change. I do not understand why what I did is a crime in your law. What do you want? The prosecutor frowned. You do not see killing and endangering others as wrong. Junsei's reply was calm. Why should I die for someone else? The question was surprising. For a brief second the prosecutor did not answer. Then he regained his footing. You acted recklessly. You killed the villains and endangered hostages. Your choices were completely unacceptable. You are a threat to public. Junsei stared at the man and thought back to all the things humans did, to the death and destruction they caused, about all the life they stole, and the suffering they caused to it. Now this man stood before him labeling what is natural as wrong while everything their kind had ever done is wrong. Why am I still listening to them? He asked himself again. Junsei's eyes began to glow. Before anyone could process it, he vanished from his seat and reappeared directly in front of the prosecutor. His hand closed around the man's throat. Gasps erupted throughout the courtroom. Choose, Junsei said, his voice devoid of emotion. Who dies, you or everyone in this room? I will kill you and be punished, or I will kill everyone else and be punished. You have until I finish counting to 3. You or them. The prosecutor's eyes widened in terror. 1. Junsei's grip tightened. The man clawed at his wrist, choking. The judges stood abruptly. Guards, one of them shouted. Guards rushed from the side, their guns pointing toward Junsei. 2. The pressure increased again. Chairs scraped. The gallery erupted in panic. Niza stood as well. Stop! He screamed. The guards opened fire and bullets struck Junsei in the side and back, but the bullet did no damage, they couldn't pierce his iron-like skin. The prosecutor, face reddening, forced out the word in pain. Them. Junsei released him immediately. The men collapsed to the floor, coughing violently. Guards who had been just firing froze when Junsei turned toward them, his eyes glowing cold blue. For a moment, no one moved before they took a fearful step back. Then the light faded. His eyes returned to normal. The prosecutor clutched his neck, staring at Junsei with naked fear. You chose to kill everyone here to save yourself, Junsei said evenly. You are no different from me. He turned toward the judges, who remained standing, stunned. If I asked any of you the same question, he continued, I think I know what you would choose. Silence filled the courtroom. You condemn me for choosing my life when each of you would choose the same. The only difference I could defend myself then while you are helpless here. His gaze shifted briefly to Nizu, then back to the bench. And you speak of waiting for All Might, he said. Your hero could not have arrived. He is dying. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Junsei looked directly at the judges once more. Do you want to punish me because I chose to live? The judges stared at the expressionless face with shock. They have never expected or seen anyone act like this in court. Junsei looked at the judges, guards and the people watching and saw the fear in their eyes. They are afraid of me, more than I am afraid of them. Junsei thought to himself. Chapter 68, The Line That Cannot Be Crossed Back. 1,558 words. Junsei turned around and left the courtroom without waiting for anyone to respond or say anything. Not a single guard dared to approach him after seeing how useless their guns were against him. He left the courtroom into the corridor and continued steadily toward the entrance of the courthouse. Soon behind him, hurried footsteps followed. Nizu, Momo, Sai, and Aizawa caught up within seconds. Ayo. Nizu's voice was full of anger. Why the hell did you do that? Do you understand what that means? Junsei did not look back. I know. What is the worst that will happen? His tone remained flat. I die. The word struck harder than his earlier outburst. Nizu's reply came strained, almost pained. Are you planning to die? You cannot choose to die whenever you face something you dislike. Junsei continued walking. All I wanted was to live, and let life continue away from humans. I wanted a way to restore what they took, but I was afraid and doubtful. I convinced myself I am free while I learned from them, observed their actions. His gaze remained forward. That I am out of the cage. I was wrong. Sai hastened his steps and stepped in front of him briefly, forcing him to stop. And what you just did will make whatever you want come true. You have effectively damned yourself in there. The heroes will come after you now. Junsei's expression did not change. Island showed me how weak most heroes truly are. The only truly dangerous one is All Might. His eyes hardened faintly. And he is dying. A chill passed through the group. If I take down enough of them, Junsei continued, humans will begin turning against each other. Momo choked on her words. You are really becoming a villain. Nizu's small hand clenched tightly. You exposed All Might to spread chaos. You want villains to become more active, to draw heroes away from you. Junsei began moving again toward the entrance of the courthouse. I want to live in peace, and life around me to be safe. And I will do anything for it. Live in peace. Nizu's anger sharpened. You are planning to fight to the death. You are going to die again. There is always a next life, Junsei replied quietly. I will not remain among humans anymore. Beyond the courthouse entrance, police vehicles had already arrived and formed a perimeter. A few pro-heroes were already present, alerted by the disruption inside. Momo's voice trembled. Junsei, whatever you are planning, please stop. You cannot do this. I am begging you. Sai stepped closer. Calm down and think. This is the worst path you could choose. You are already halfway to what you wanted. Do not destroy everything now. Junsei walked forward and walked past the entrance. Aizawa moved forward instinctively, preparing to restrain him, but Nizu spoke up. Stop. Your quirk will have no effect on him. And he is far stronger than you. There was no hesitation in Nizu's tone, only anger and urgency. We will need every hero we have in the wake of All Might's truth, Nizu continued, voice low but intense. And the disaster he is about to cause. Junsei slowed a few meters ahead, sensing Nizu's state. Ao, Nizu called out. Junsei paused. You had another path, Nizu said. Yet you chose the worst one. I will not accept your crimes, no matter your reasoning. Junsei turned. His eyes were no longer human. They were entirely blue with no white. He spoke calmly. Crime is a human concept. I was never human. His gaze moved briefly across the police line. You judge me by the laws of those who should never have existed. While the others recoiled at his eyes and words, Nizu felt something deeper. Beneath the calm face, there was fury and hatred. He could feel Junsei's bloodlust, directed not at individuals, but at humanity itself. Nizu understood then. Junsei was about to cross every line available to him. Without looking away from Junsei, Nizu spoke to Aizawa. Call All Might. Call the Hero Public Safety Commission. His voice was steady now, though his hands remained clenched. We will need all the help we can get. Junsei turned around and left toward the police and began moving again. Momo hesitated, then stepped toward Junsei, but Sai put a hand on her shoulder. She looked at him in surprise. Sai sighed and shook his head and said, "He won't listen to you, I can feel it, he is full of malice now." Junsei continued forward toward the police. Guns were raised, hands steady but visibly tense. Several pro-heroes stood among them. Most were unfamiliar to him except for one. A man with red wings stood in front of the rest, the wing hero, Hawks. Ranked third among active heroes. Hawks offered an easy smile. "For a moment, I thought you'd become the next big hero," he said lightly. "It's a shame to see you take the villain route like this." Junsei did not respond. He kept walking. The distance between them shortened. Then Hawk's expression changed. His pupils dilated. His jaw tightened. He bit down briefly on his lip with all his might. "So that's how it feels," he muttered. "Being under the effect or your quirk. It's terrible." Feathers detached from his wings in a sudden burst, slicing through the air from all directions toward Junsei. Junsei did not evade. Dozens of feathers struck him yet bounced harmlessly off his body, as if colliding with reinforced steel. Hawks exhaled through his teeth. "Tough skin. I hate fighting people like you the most. It is a pain to deal with." Junsei shifted his weight, prepared to retaliate. Then a scream tore through the air behind him. Momo's scream. He turned instantly. Aizawa was retreating, knees clutched in his arms as he leapt backward. A swirling purple mist had opened at the courthouse entrance, and it was swallowing Momo whole, the same mist for USJ. Nearby, Sai struggled futilely, his body lifted off the ground by the throat. The one holding him was a white-haired man with lifeless eyes, and a deep scar across his face. Junsei's body reacted before thought could catch up. He charged toward them. The white-haired man glanced at him, and raised a single hand. A shockwave detonated outward from the man across the street, and straight into Junsei. It struck Junsei mid-stride and hurled him backward tens of meters until he crashed through a police vehicle, metal folding around him as officers scattered in panic. Before the wreckage had fully settled, Junsei erupted from it, launching himself forward again with greater force. The ground split open beneath him. Concrete ruptured and the entire street was split open, which destabilized his footing. Another invisible strike hit him from the side, sending him crashing into a nearby building. Glass shattered. Dust filled the air. Again, he rose from it and lunged. The man lifted his hand once more. Junsei halted mid-charge and veered sharply to the side, anticipating the shockwave. It never came. The man lowered his arm. "I have wanted to meet you," he said calmly, voice smooth and measured. "Since the sports festival." Junsei froze. "You may call me," the man continued, "All for One." Junsei remembered the name. "I saw this day as a wonderful opportunity," All for One went on. "You possess the potential of a remarkable villain. I considered recruiting you." His head tilted slightly. "But your actions on Island, killing Wolfram, made it clear you do not follow orders." His grip tightened around Sai's throat. "So I decided to try a different game." Junsei's eyes sharpened. "That girl," All for One said mildly. "Yayorozu Momo. If you wish to see her alive again, you will hunt 100 heroes for me. I want 100 hero heads placed in front of me at midnight. Any hero will do except for All Might, you are not to touch him. I will meet you here." A faint pause. "If you fail, the girl will suffer." Junsei's voice dropped into a low growl. "I will kill you." All for One chuckled softly. "That is the spirit." He turned toward the swirling purple portal. Still holding Sai, he stepped partially into the mist. Then, with a casual motion, he hurled Sai toward Junsei with overwhelming force. A reminder, his voice echoed as he disappeared fully into the portal, that I keep my promises. Junsei moved instantly to catch Sai. He succeeded. But the moment Sai's body settled into his arms, something was wrong. Sai began to scream. An orange light pulsed beneath his skin, his veins were glowing strangely. The illumination intensified, spreading rapidly through his body. Then his skin ruptured. His body burst outward as though detonated from within. Blood splattered on Junsei's shocked face, as Sai died instantly in his hands. Junsei stood frozen. He looked down at the remains of the human he had been holding. Nizu and Aizawa stared in shock and incomprehension. Hawks hovered midair, his feathers lifting scattered police officers to safety, prioritizing their evacuation even as his gaze remained locked on Junsei. Junsei did not move. His hands trembled once, barely perceptible, before going still. For the first time since the Island, his anger and hatred calmed down. Chapter 69, Before the Disaster. 1883 words. A/N, this story is not based on existence. I came to know about the manhwa, and read it after more than half of the story was already written, and with the rest already decided. The only parts one changed slightly after reading existence are in chapters 99 and 108, and neither of them involve saving human. Junsei stood motionless, still holding what remained of Sai. For several seconds, he did not move. The world around him felt distant, muffled beneath a pressure that settled in his chest. He felt loss, pain and sadness. It was similar to how he felt before Kikyo's lifeless body years ago, but this was way worse. His breathing quickened. Each inhale grew sharper, more unstable. His heart pounded violently in his chest, as if trying to break free. The muscles in his face tightened, twisting into open rage. Then it stopped. The storm receded as suddenly as it had risen. Momo would suffer the same fate. He needed 100 hero heads. Junsei lowered Sai's body on the ground before his gaze shifted around from Sai's body to Aizawa, who was moving closer to him with Nizu still in his hands. From Aizawa to Hawks. Then to the other heroes who had begun to regroup, still shaken but readying themselves. Nizu's voice cut through. Please don't do it. His tone carried urgency that bordered on desperation. You will only make things worse. You will not save Miss Yayorozu that way. You will only doom her by listening to him. Junsei turned his head slightly. He wants 100 heads, he said calmly. Once she is safe, I will kill him. Nizu shook his head firmly. That is all for one, the worst villain in Japan's history. He will not release her even if you kill 1,000 heroes. He will keep her life dangling in front of you until you become his puppet. His voice hardened. And he might kill her simply to watch how you react. Junsei's jaw tightened and said, stay out of this. If you truly want to save her, Nizu continued, stepping closer, then do not listen to him. Trust me. She is my student. I will do everything in my power to save her. Obeying him is the worst possible choice. Around them, Hawks and the other heroes began moving subtly, attempting to reposition and form a loose perimeter around Junsei. Stop, Nizu ordered them. The heroes hesitated. We have a greater problem, Nizu continued. AFO has returned, most of you don't know him, but he is the worst villain the world has ever seen. We must inform police headquarters and the Hero Public Safety Commission immediately. And we must prepare for tonight. His appearance now and the deadline is his way of announcing his return and appearing before the world. Hawks frowned. Even so, he is still a dangerous criminal. We need to. I will take responsibility for this decision, Nizu interrupted. I do not want our resources wasted in the wrong place. His small hand clenched tightly. The greatest threat here is all for one. No one else. Everyone hesitated. On one side there was the law and procedures they followed, and on the other the principle of UA, and one of the smartest creatures in the world. If he views the matter of the white-haired men in such urgency, it must hold a greater weight than they can imagine. They didn't want to act based on their own judgment in such a situation. Junsei's eyes narrowed. What if you are wrong? Nizu did not hesitate. AFO represents the worst humanity has ever produced. I know what kind of person he is. I have no doubt he is lying to you. His gaze locked onto Junsei's. Do you want to help him achieve what he wants? Junsei's fist tightened. He did not know. If Okina was right, then the correct course was ignoring the threat and wait. If he was wrong, then Momo would have the same fate as Sai. Aizawa finally spoke. Why now? Why reveal himself now? Nizu's eyes flickered briefly toward Junsei before returning forward. Because of Junsei's words, he answered quietly. All Might is no longer a threat to him. And he has found a violent individual with a powerful quirk and complete disregard of law, someone who can be used to terrorize the country. Junsei froze. Nizu continued, your actions have consequences even if you don't know about them. Just like the actions of the humans you condemn. Nizu watched him carefully. He hoped that this would force Junsei to see what he had refused to acknowledge. That he didn't hate humans unconditionally, and that he could make mistakes and bring harm unintentionally. Junsei finally moved again, picking up Sai's body. Junsei said finally, I will come here tonight. Nizu added, he is probably hiding somewhere inside the city. If we can find his hideout, then the odds of saving her would increase substantially. Junsei turned around and took off, leaving behind a powerful wind, and in seconds he was out of sight. Hawk's eyes widened as he said, is it me or does he move just like All Might? Inside the office of the Yayorozu mansion, Junsei sat before a monitor. Dried blood stained his face and clothes. He started the call. After a brief delay, Mr. Yayorozu's face appeared on the screen. The man's expression shifted immediately upon seeing him. Is that blood on your face? He demanded. What happened to you? And why the hell did you act like that in court? The villain called AFO appeared at the courthouse entrance, Junsei said evenly. He killed Mr. Sai and took Momo. Mr. Yayorozu's features changed. The color drained slightly from his face. Are you speaking the truth? He asked slowly. Yes, Junsei replied. I buried Mr. Sai in the back garden. I thought you needed to know. For a moment, silence filled the office. Then anger surged across the older man's face. Where the hell were you? He snapped. How did you allow that to happen? Junsei did not defend himself. AFO said I must bring the heads of 100 heroes, he stated. Or Momo will pay the price. The principal said doing that will not save her. Mr. Yayorozu froze. 100, he repeated. His voice had lost its volume. What are you going to do? Junsei's gaze lowered slightly. I will save her no matter what. Junsei went silent for 2 seconds, then said, I hate humans. Good or bad should feel the same. So why am I sad and angry over Mr. Sai's death? Mr. Yayorozu stared at him. Are you asking seriously, he said, or are you trying to provoke me? Junsei remained silent. Sai thought of you as a son, the man continued. He treated you well. You had a good relationship with him. His jaw tightened. You would be a monster if you felt nothing. Junsei absorbed the words without visible reaction. After a moment he said, I am leaving. I will not live here anymore. Mr. Yayorozu pressed his lips together. After what you said and did in court, there is no place for you here. His voice hardened. But what about my daughter? Junsei replied. I will save her. The man said, do your best and stop at nothing to make sure she is safe. Junsei nodded. Then he asked, do you regret bringing me into your home? A faint pause followed. Sometimes I am grateful, Mr. Yaoyorozu answered. Other times, I regret it. I cannot tell how things would have turned if I didn't. Junsei ended the call. His eyes began to glow. He needed to find Momo no matter where she was. All around the city, every insect, bird and animal began to stir. At UA, all faculty members were present and along with them all the city's available top-ranked heroes. They had gathered within the main conference hall in UA. At the head of the room stood Principal Nizu. Nizu addressed the room. AFO has returned. Nizu spoke plainly, revealing the truth hidden from the public. AFO had ruled Japan's underworld from the shadows for decades, amassing power quietly, manipulating events without becoming the public enemy. Years ago, All Might had defeated him at great cost. Nizu explained what kind of monster is All for One, a monster who stole quirks, a monster who thrived in chaos and fear. Among those present top heroes were Endeavor, Hawks, Best Jeanist, Gang Orca, MT Lady, and Kamui Woods. Nizu continued, I believe he chose this moment to make himself public because he believes All Might is incapable of defeating him again. At the same time, he sought to use one of our students to create further havoc. The weight of that implication settled heavily. Him appearing publicly means he is already confident in his power, Nizu said. A person like him will aim to destabilize society, as it will only strengthen him further. Endeavor's voice cut in. What about that unstable boy? Where is he now? Hawks answered, we confirmed he returned to the Yaoyorozu residence. He buried the butler. Then he left. We currently do not know his location. Endeavor's gaze sharpened. You should have apprehended him. I told him not to, Nizu replied evenly. Endeavor looked at the tiny principal. You must understand, Nizu continued, Junsei is extraordinarily strong. His raw power may be second only to All Might in his prime. In a direct confrontation without preparation, most heroes in this room would likely lose, including you Endeavor. Not to mention the risk to civilians and police force. Endeavor narrowed his eyes but said nothing. I will not allow our heroes to fight against him, Nizu said, voice firm. Not when the true threat to this country is preparing to strike. Endeavor folded his arms. Then what is the plan? We prepare for battle, Nizu answered. We expect AFO to appear with the League of Villains. Possibly Nomu as well. We will have Junsei on our side, Nizu added. He represents significant combat power regardless of his current legal state. Best Jeanist asked, and if he turns against us? The girl is a leverage and the villain won't hesitate to use it. That is precisely why saving her must be prioritized, Nizu said. At this moment, I have no doubt Junsei is scouting every inch in the city to find her location. Kamui Wood spoke next. What about All Might? What is his real state? Nizu replied, unfortunately bad. His injuries from the battle against AFO had been weakening him for years, and during the festival sport his health and power deteriorated faster. He can only use his power for a small period a day, and at the moment, he is preserving his strength for the confrontation tonight. Nizu's sentence didn't encourage the heroes one bit. They are about to face a monster who nearly killed All Might in his prime, and while the current All Might strength has deteriorated, that villain's strength probably is the same or maybe stronger. Nizu added, I have already requested for available heroes from other cities to come to aid us if possible, and the police are already evacuating the area. Chapter 70, Era's End. 1806 words. In an abandoned storage facility on the outskirts of the city, every window had been sealed with thick layers of paper. No light entered or escaped the place. From a small office room, AFO stepped out calmly into the main warehouse. Rows of cylindrical tubes filled the space. Inside each floated a Nomu to be released upon the world. Beside the tubes stood Tomura Shigaraki and Kurojiri, while the rest of Shigaraki's misfit crew were standing far away in the back. Shigaraki spoke. Sensei, I thought you said her quirk wasn't worth the trouble. Why take it? Wouldn't she make a better hostage intact? AFO answered his student patiently. The boy did not attack the heroes. He is clearly siding with them. A futile hope that cooperation will succeed in saving the girl. A faint smile formed beneath his mask. I plan to return the broken girl to him. And the only way for her to regain what she lost will be through me. Shigaraki asked. And what if he doesn't care? And why did interfere in his fight against the heroes? It will not matter, AFO replied with a vile smile. I will take his quirk and eliminate him. This is just a game. The boy's words and actions are enough to expose the kind of person he is, and how I should handle him. In the end, if I benefit, that's good, if not, I would enjoy his desperation. Shigaraki's voice sharpened. Please, sensei. Leave him to me. I want my revenge. A small pause followed. Most likely, AFO said mildly, you will not have the opportunity. You will not be coming with me. Shigaraki stiffened. What? I want to fight the heroes. AFO's smile widened slightly. I have another mission for you. No less important. And it will allow you to kill and ruin heroes. Shigaraki's agitation eased as he waited for his teacher to continue. You will lead your group, AFO continued, alongside several Nomu, to attack the Hero Public Safety Commission. Shigaraki's eyes widened faintly. What better announcement of my arrival, AFO said, than dismantling the commission and killing top heroes including All Might in one decisive night. He began walking slowly between the rows of tubes. I will take half of the Nomu to confront the heroes directly. Once the majority of standby heroes mobilize toward that battlefield, the commission will be left vulnerable. His voice remained steady. That is when you strike. Shigaraki nodded, though uncertainty lingered. But are you going to face everyone alone? It will not be an issue, AFO replied. All Might is a shell of his former self, while I have maintained my strength, and even gained additional interesting quirks, not to mention the number of Nomus by my side is enough to take a considerable portion of the heroes. I have been preparing for this day for the last few years. His gaze drifted toward the dormant Nomu. The heroes will not understand what has struck them. He stopped. Tonight marks the beginning of a new era of chaos and fear. Shigaraki's lips curled in anticipation. Everywhere else in the city, birds cut across the sky in erratic patterns. Insects crawled along walls and beneath doors. Stray animals moved quietly through alleys and rooftops. From a crow perched on a power cable to a tiny ant climbing a cracked wall, every creature carried a singular directive. Find Momo. Find AFO or the Mist Guy and the Hands Guy from USJ. Hours passed and the sun sank. Night replaced the day, and there was still no trace anywhere. Junsei stood atop a building, unmoving, listening through thousands of bodies scattered across the city. He found nothing useful. Desperation tightened in his chest as midnight approached. He began to doubt they were not in the city, maybe they were hiding elsewhere, and they were using the Mist Guy to teleport. But just when midnight was near, he finally caught something. In an under-construction of 3 stories buildings several districts away, the man covered in hands stood looking toward the distance with a group of people behind him. Junsei's eyes sharpened. Without hesitation, he launched himself forward. He moved across the city in rapid succession, leaping from rooftop to rooftop. Concrete fractured beneath his takeoffs. Wind tore past him as he closed the distance within minutes. When the building was finally in sight, he saw the Hands Guy on the 3rd floor walking back toward his group. Junsei jumped straight into that floor landing with a thud that made everyone turn around in alarm. For a split second, surprise registered on every face as they saw him. Then all villains shifted into defensive stances. Junsei's gaze locked onto Shigaraki unblinkingly. What is your relation to AFO? Shigaraki froze briefly at the sight of Junsei's glowing eyes. Then a slow smile crept across his face. I've wanted to meet you, he said. To repay you for ruining my attack and preventing me from killing All Might. Junsei ignored his words and asked again, what is your relation? Shigaraki's smile widened. Why? Looking for the girl. Too bad. She's with Sensei. You won't find her. Junsei's voice remained flat. You are his student. Yes. The word had barely left Shigaraki's mouth when Junsei moved. He lifted his leg and stomped the floor with full force, causing concrete to break and support beams to snap. The entire level collapsed instantly, giving way beneath everyone present. As the villains lost their footing and began falling, Junsei surged forward, seizing Shigaraki by the neck. The moment his hand made full contact, electricity erupted. A violent current coursed through Shigaraki's body. His scream tore through the night air as his muscles locked. He was unable to activate his quirk or resist. Junsei continued to leap from the collapsing building, taking Shigaraki several buildings away. Behind them, the structure continued to crumble. Without a word, Junsei proceeded to break both of Shigaraki's arms, his face betraying no emotion as Shigaraki wailed. He continued by peeling the hand from Shigaraki's face, and pried his jaw apart. Junsei's eyes glowed blue as he raised his hand to his mouth, and savagely tore a chunk from it. Then he pressed the gushing wound to Shigaraki's mouth, forcing the blood down his throat. Shigaraki thrashed, but his broken arms were useless against Junsei's iron grip. With one final, brutal shock that made Shigaraki's body arch and seize. He lifted Shigaraki and turned toward the courthouse, the site AFO himself had chosen for their meeting. Near the courthouse, the heroes were spread throughout the area in preparation for AFO's arrival. Exactly at midnight, a swirling purple mist appeared at the very spot where he had disappeared earlier. From it walked AFO, smiling, with Momo dragged by the neck. The girl looked miserable. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red. She could barely stand. His arrival alerted the heroes, with All Might the first to step forward and confront him. AFO. All Might shouted. AFO smiled beneath his mask. I have been looking forward to meeting you again since our last encounter. I have much to repay you for. I defeated you once, All Might said. I will do it a second time. At the same time, heroes from all directions began closing in, surrounding AFO. He paid them no attention, keeping his focus entirely on All Might. I admit your strength back then caught me by surprise, AFO said calmly, but now you are nothing more than a pathetic shell of your former self. You came here to die, All Might. If you are so confident, let the girl go and fight me. All Might demanded. There is no hurry. I will kill you tonight regardless, AFO replied. I brought this girl to trade with the boy. Where is he? It is one thing that he didn't kill the heroes as I instructed, but not appearing at all. He glanced around thoughtfully. Perhaps I overestimated her importance to him. He is not here, All Might repeated. So let her go. Your fight is with me. All Might, that will not do, AFO said. If he is not here to receive her, then what is the point of keeping her alive? Hearing that, All Might gritted his teeth. You demon. AFO's smile widened. Your anger and desperation, how amusing. He looked around at the surrounding heroes. Perhaps the boy believes your pathetic gathering is enough to save the girl. Unfortunately, you will need someone to save you. At that moment, portals began opening all over the area. From them emerged dozens of Nomu of various sizes and shapes, immediately launching attacks against the heroes. How many people did you condemn to this sick fate? All Might shouted. My special gift to you heroes, AFO replied. And where is your smile? You should be smiling for the cameras. He gestured outward. All Might followed his motion and noticed dozens of cameras installed around the area. When did you? They are broadcasting everything, AFO interrupted, including our conversation, across all of Japan. Did you truly believe I would select this place abruptly to announce my appearance without preparation? I am here to declare the end of this era, and the return of the age of chaos. Your death will serve as an example. AFO lifted his arm. It began to swell and twist unnaturally before releasing a massive shockwave that sent All Might flying hundreds of meters into a building in the distance. You are far weaker than I imagined, AFO said. All Might gritted his teeth and charged forward again. The villain smiled and lifted Momo by the neck, positioning her directly in front of him. All Might came to an abrupt stop. AFO did not hesitate. He unleashed another shockwave, which All Might narrowly sidestepped. However, the ground beneath him suddenly turned to clay, causing him to lose his balance for a split second. AFO's arm transformed into a whip, lightning crackling around it. He lashed it across All Might's face, opening a deep wound, mirroring the very scar AFO bore. Then AFO raised his foot and stomped down. The earth erupted like a clay volcano. All Might was launched several meters into the air, only for another shockwave to strike him midair and send him crashing through multiple buildings. Moments later, All Might emerged from the wreckage. His face bled. His side bled. He was breathing heavily. He coughed up blood and dropped to his knees. Steam rose from his body as his muscle mass began to shrink. AFO laughed softly. How pathetic, All Might. You are already reaching your limit, and yet you dare to believe you can face me. All Might glared at him, fury burning in his eyes. Damn you. Chapter 71, The Hand Behind Everything. 1,608 words. The battle had not even lasted a full minute before several heroes were already injured. The Nomas fought with terrifying brutality, each displaying combinations of quirks that felt deliberately selected. It was as though they had been engineered to counter specific top heroes, designed for durability and resistance. No clearer example existed than the two Nomas facing Endeavor. Both possessed flame resistance quirks. Both carried physical enhancement abilities that allowed them to withstand his hellflame and retaliate with monstrous force. Every strike Endeavor landed was mitigated. Every counter from them shook the surroundings. Then matters worsened. Several nearby buildings collapsed in succession, dragging the hero's attention toward the source. From the rising dust and scattered debris, All Might emerged. Injured and breathing heavily. The symbol of peace was already exhausted. The sound of AFO loud, arrogant laughter followed. He was still completely untouched, and didn't take a single step from his initial position. Worry began to spread among the gathered heroes. They had come prepared for a hard battle, and they had anticipated Nomas. They understood the kind of monster they were facing. But they had not expected it would be at this level. These Nomas were not like the ones faced months ago. They were superior in both strength and durability. And AFO had overwhelmed All Might with ease. The original plan was to defeat the Nomas as swiftly as possible and join All Might in confronting their greatest enemy. Now they were not sure if they could defeat the Nomas with the forces they had. They should have waited for more forces to gather from other cities. All Might, AFO spoke, I have long desired this confrontation. There is no one I have wished to kill more than you. Now seeing. His words stopped. A figure dropped from above, landing between him and All Might. Junsei stood before AFO, and in his grasp hung Shigaraki Tamura, arms broken and face bloodied. AFO's smile vanished the instant he saw his student's condition. Junsei's gaze shifted briefly to Momo. She looked in a bad state. Then he saw the abominations of life called Nomas surrounding the battlefield. Anger began to boil inside him as his hatred for this human standing there deepened. Yet his expression remained blank. I have your student, Junsei said evenly. If you want him alive, release Momo. AFO regarded him calmly. So you delayed your arrival to search for someone you believed important to me. To use as leverage. Junsei did not respond. You truly act like a villain, AFO continued. You even broke Tamura's arms. How cruel. His tone carried faint amusement. But tell me, why should I accept this trade? I will kill him, Junsei replied. Then I will kill you. AFO studied him for a moment. How troublesome, he said lightly. My dear student had an assignment tonight. His presence here suggests part of my design has failed. That irritates me. Then he smiled again. Very well. Release Tamura, and let him walk toward me. I will release the girl. A fair exchange. Meanwhile, Momo's eyes widened as she watched Junsei. Tears gathered despite her attempt to remain composed. AFO loosened his grip on her and shoved her forward. She stumbled and fell to the ground. Go on, he said. Run before I change my mind. Momo forced herself up and began moving. At the same time, Junsei released Shigaraki, pushing him forward in mirrored fashion. Shigaraki fell hard, struggling to rise with broken arms. He staggered ahead. The hostages moved at the same time, and when they passed each other and Shigaraki neared AFO. Sensei. At the same time, Momo's voice trembled. Junsei. At that moment, AFO lifted his arm. A small red jewel manifested in his palm. He fired a concentrated golden beam directly at Momo. Junsei moved instantly toward Momo. The attack was too fast to evade, so he seized Momo and pulled her into a protective hold, turning his back toward the incoming beam. The moment the beam touched his back, an explosion thundered across the battlefield. Flames and smoke engulfed both of them. AFO watched the rising smoke with a faint smile. Seconds later, the smoke cleared, showing Junsei standing upright. Momo remained completely unharmed in his arms. Junsei's back, however, was severely burned, skin blackened and torn by the force of the blast. Junsei. Momo whispered fearfully. Are you okay? I am fine, he answered. As he spoke, his burned flesh began to mend. AFO observed with interest. Fascinating, he said. I was curious about the nature of your regeneration and the limits of your defense. It does not render you invincible, nor does it elevate you to the level All Might possessed in his prime. But it is impressive nonetheless. Especially for someone your age. Junsei did not respond to AFO's words. He merely glanced over his shoulder at him before shifting his gaze to Shigaraki. The next moment, Shigaraki screamed. His veins began to bulge violently beneath his skin, as though something inside him was alive and struggling. The flesh along his arms and neck convulsed unnaturally. AFO turned toward his student, confusion replacing his composed confident expression. Then Shigaraki's veins ruptured. They tore outward through skin and muscle. Blood sprayed in every direction, splattering across the ground and the surrounding. AFO, standing only a step away, was drenched from head to toe. Shigaraki collapsed. For a single second, AFO stood motionless, staring down at his student's mangled body. Junsei watched him. He wanted him to see it and to feel it. To experience what it was like to have someone explode in front of you, just as he had done to Sai. Earlier, Junsei had fed Shigaraki his blood. In nature, countless parasitic organisms implant themselves, or their offspring, inside host bodies. They grow living silently inside the host. And when the time comes to emerge, the most violent of them tear their way out from within, destroying the host in the process. Junsei had drawn upon that aspect. He fused that principle with his blood, shaping it into something that would mimic what AFO had done to Sai. Understanding dawned on AFO, and he turned toward Junsei. You are imitating me, he said slowly. You are recreating what I did to that man. Taking revenge in the same manner I killed him. His tone had no anger, just fascination. Now, he continued, I truly desire your quirk for myself. He stepped forward slightly. I originally intended to offer you a choice. Work for me, and I would return the girl's quirk. Refuse, and she would remain quirkless for the rest of her life. Junsei's eyes moved to Momo. Her voice trembled. He took my quirk. AFO continued calmly, however, I changed my mind the moment you appeared here with my student. Suddenly, Momo screamed. A glow ignited beneath her skin, light burning through her body from the inside. For an instant, Junsei believed she would explode as well. She collapsed in his arms. Burn-like marks spread across her face and body while her consciousness slipped away. Junsei tightened his hold on her. I injected enough energy, AFO said casually, to push her to the brink of death without causing an eruption. His smile returned. I will give you a new choice. Kill every hero in this city, and I will heal her. Refuse, and at best she will remain in a vegetative state for the rest of her life. A strained voice cut in. Young Mori, don't believe him. All Might stood several meters away, no longer in his muscular form. He had reverted completely to his skeletal state, steam faintly rising from his frail body. He cannot save her, All Might said. He is manipulating you. AFO laughed. How pitiful you have become, All Might. Weak and powerless beyond even my expectation. His voice grew. Unlike you, I possess the power to support my claims. Observe me, boy. Junsei's eyes narrowed. AFO raised a hand. His palms began to glow faintly. From them extended a golden tentacle of light that slithered across the ground toward Shigaraki's ruined body. It touched him. The light flared brightly, then withdrew back into AFO's palm. Shigaraki's body twitched. Slowly, he began to move. He looked completely fine, as if nothing had harmed him. He rose unsteadily, looking around in confusion. Sensei. Kurogiri, AFO ordered calmly, take him away. A swirl of purple mist manifested beside Shigaraki and swallowed him whole. AFO's laughter echoed across the battlefield. Years ago, he said, I acquired this quirk right before my battle with you. It is thanks to it that I remain alive and stronger than ever. His gaze settled on Junsei. So tell me, boy. Will you save the girl? Junsei's voice came out low. That is Sally's quirk. You have a connection to the men who attacked the orphanage. AFO tilted his head slightly. The Nagi no Shiro orphanage, he said. Yes. They attacked it under my orders. Junsei stared at AFO with a shocked face. He was responsible for attacking the orphanage and killing the caretakers. He had created the abominations. He had killed Sai. And now he intended to do the same to Momo. Junsei attempted to sense the life coming from AFO, and what he found made his stomach twist. The life taken by AFO was unbelievable, dozens of times greater than what All Might had possessed at the beginning of the year. For the first time, Junsei felt the urge to vomit just from perceiving it. You went even after helpless children. All Might's voice trembled with fury. You truly are a demon. Chapter 72, I am your demon. 1665 words. At All Might's accusation, AFO laughed. No, he said calmly. I am not a demon. I am the demon lord. And all of Japan will learn that tonight. His smile widened, growing more sinister. No. You are no demon. Junsei suddenly spoke. You are a human. The most human I have ever seen. Junsei lifted Momo carefully and walked toward All Might. He lowered her gently onto the ground before him. All Might looked at him in surprise after hearing his words, but when he saw Momo being put in front of him, he reached toward her to check her state. Across from them, AFO's smile lessened. The statement had struck his pride, it reduced him. In a sense, it demeaned the power and control he possessed. And beneath it, he sensed deeper intent behind these words. You say I am human more than anyone else. AFO said. This is the first time I have heard such a claim. I reckon most would object to that. Junsei turned. His eyes were entirely blue. AFO's smile returned faintly. Is this your attempt to contradict me? To anger me? If so, it is a poor effort. Junsei began walking toward him. To take from another by force is tantamount to evil in the eyes of humans, he said. Yet, from the moment you are all born you practice this art. For thousands of years, each generation has been perfecting the sin you have inherited. His voice did not rise. That is what a human is. A continuous accumulation of sin. Your existence itself is a compounded transgression against life. Fine cracks began to spread across Junsei's skin. You have accepted your nature, he continued. You know you are evil. As is every human who walks this world. More cracks. You are human, more than most. AFO's smile faded completely. The fractures widened across Junsei's body, glowing faintly from within. Blue vapor began to seep through the fissures. The air shifted. The world itself seemed to tint faintly blue. The ground beneath their feet. The distant trees. The shattered buildings. Even the fabric and skin of the surrounding humans. AFO's composure wavered when sensed movement from all around him. From every direction, the nomes approached. Their eyes glowed blue. They formed a circle around him. AFO looked from them to Junsei. What are you doing? I want to practice your sin, Junsei replied. I will take everything from you. The nomes collapsed simultaneously. Blue light rose from their bodies, streams of luminous steam that flowed through the air and entered the cracks along Junsei's skin. Junsei removed what remained of his torn shirt. Where his heart should have been, a hollow cavity opened within his chest. Inside it floated a glowing blue pearl. His hands broke apart at the fingers, reshaping into elongated, luminous blue appendages tipped with curved claws. His teeth shifted, multiplying into 2 rows of fangs. The skin along his mouth split, widening unnaturally as his cheeks tore away, and reformed into layered ridges lined with teeth. Cracks deepened beneath his eyes. Then a second, smaller pair of eyes opened below the first. When he exhaled, blue vapor poured from his mouth. AFO stared at the transformation, genuine surprise crossing his features. Junsei spoke. The voice that emerged was layered, distorted and inhuman in every sense. I am your kind's demon, and I will devour you. He roared. The sound was not singular. It carried the overlapping cries of countless creatures, predators and preys, ancient and modern, winged, scaled, furred, crawling. It was as if every living being since the dawn of the earth had lent its voice to one unified roar. No human had ever heard such a sound. The roar vibrated at a frequency so deep that nearby windows shattered instantly. Civilians miles away clutched their ears in confusion and terror. Within dozens of miles, every human heard it. And felt it. A deep fear spreads instinctively across the city, without anyone understanding why their bodies were acting up. Even AFO felt it. Something inside him recoiled at the existence of this monster. His body trembled despite himself. The quirks within him stirred uneasily. AFO stared in alarm at the monster standing before him. Whatever it was doing, it was affecting even the quirks within him. Junsei moved first. He launched himself toward AFO and drove his fist forward with all his strength. AFO reacted instantly. His arm swelled grotesquely as he stacked quirks in rapid succession, enhancement strength, reinforcement, impact amplification layered in a heartbeat. The 2 fists collided. The resulting shockwave tore across the ground, ripping through debris and shattering nearby fractured buildings. The air itself seemed to split. All Might dropped over Momo's unconscious body, shielding her from the blast. AFO was sent flying backward, his feet carving trenches before he created golden flames from his legs and propelled himself off to the air. Blood spilled from his fist. Junsei did not pause. He launched after him like a cannonball. AFO swung his other arm, generating a compressed blast of pressurized air. The force struck, causing Junsei to halt his momentum into a complete stop. At the same time, the golden flames erupted stronger from AFO's legs, allowing him to fly higher. Junsei leapt upward, he ascended high above his opponent before descending with a brutal axe kick. AFO twisted aside at the last instant, avoiding the attack. Junsei's heel continued downward and struck the earth. The ground fractured in every direction. Massive slabs of concrete and stone were hurled upward. Nearby heroes lost their footing as the shock rippled outward. "Stay away from them!" Endeavor roared. AFO shot higher into the sky, widening the distance. He passed near MT Lady, who reacted immediately and swung a massive fist toward him. Before her blow could land, Junsei surged upward once more. This time, he opened his mouth and unleashed his most powerful sound attack yet. AFO erected an invisible barrier around himself. The sound wave struck it violently. The barrier held, but the force sent him hurtling farther away. The sound attack continued to expand, and it struck MT Lady directly. She screamed as the attack ripped through her senses. Her massive body toppled backward into nearby buildings, crushing them under her weight. AFO dismissed the barrier and accelerated higher into the sky, retreating from the immediate zone. Junsei pursued without hesitation. Below, the heroes watched the two figures streak away. They're heading toward a populated district. Best Jeanist shouted. Alarm spread instantly. "We need a medic here." Kamui Woods called out. The heroes glanced toward MT Lady. Blood streamed from her ears, nose, and eyes. Dread deepened. Those two monsters were moving toward civilians. If they continued fighting there, the result would be catastrophic regardless who wins. AFO flew as fast as he could while tracking Junsei's movements below. At the same time, his injured arm glowed gold and healed completely within moments. Junsei leapt again, soaring hundreds of meters upward to intercept him. The instant he reached striking distance, AFO turned. His arm split and transformed into writhing black tentacles that shot toward Junsei. They wrapped around him and his limbs midair, halting him mere inches from AFO's face. "You are just like an animal," AFO said coldly. AFO generated black lightning that traveled through the tentacles, causing Junsei's body to be engulfed by the black lightning. However, Junsei showed no reaction from getting struck by the lightning. Junsei, seeing his limbs locked in place, opened his mouth and stretched his jaw open. AFO reacted at once, forming a condensed barrier directly in front of the widening mouth as he expected another sound attack. But no sound came. Instead, Junsei's tongue shot out like a chameleon. It curved around the edge of the barrier, in a wide arc, and coiled around AFO's torso. AFO's eyes widened. The next instant, he was yanked forward. Junsei's mouth opened even wider as AFO's head approached it. AFO severed the tongue with a sharp blade formed from his other arm, and simultaneously hurled Junsei downward with the tentacles. Even so, Junsei managed to bite off the side of AFO's face before being thrown away. He crashed into the street below, shattering asphalt upon impact. AFO touched the bleeding wound along his face. A sharp pain pulsed there. Golden light flared. When he lowered his hand, the injury had vanished. He looked down. Junsei stood in the ruined street, staring upward. He swallowed the chunk of flesh he had torn off. AFO felt a rare sensation of shock edged with disgust. The freak had swallowed it. He narrowed his eyes. He did not understand the nature of this quirk, why it was affecting him, and his quirks like that, but that did not matter at the moment. Once he took down that freak and stole it, he would understand what kind of quirk is that. AFO shot downward. His arm swelled and reshaped into a grotesque cannon-like formation. He aimed at Junsei and fired a concentrated laser beam. Junsei jumped to the nearest building roof, narrowly avoiding the blast. All of this while the unsuspecting civilians in the street were watching in confusion and fear what was going on. And when the laser struck, The explosion that followed obliterated part of the street along with several of them. They were killed instantly, and many more were injured. AFO tracked Junsei's movement and fired again and again. Junsei sprinted across buildings at incredible speed, vaulting from rooftop to rooftop. Those buildings were occupied, and every time a beam struck, casualties were inevitable. Junsei eventually jumped onto a parking building full of cars. He began picking cars and throwing them at AFO, who fired smaller and quicker laser beams to destroy them. Metal and fire rained upon the city, causing injuries among the bystanders in the street, and fire started in some nearby buildings. Screams of terror filled the night as the disastrous battle had begun. Chapter 73, The Relentless Hunt. 1,667 words. Junsei stood atop the parking building, eyes fixed on AFO hovering above the city. A few cars were left laying around him, remnants of what he had already hurled skyward. Each vehicle he had thrown had been obliterated midair by laser fire. Junsei lifted both hands. A violent explosion surged from his palms and tore upward. AFO answered instantly, firing a concentrated laser downward. The two attacks collided. A massive detonation swallowed the skyline in smoke and flame, obscuring everything from view. Within that same second, AFO activated a sensory quirk, expanding his perception to locate every living presence nearby. He immediately realized Junsei was already upon him. He emerged from the smoke without warning, claws extended. AFO erected another barrier. But it shattered on impact with Junsei's claws. The claws punched straight through AFO's torso. AFO clenched his jaw. With one arm, he seized Junsei's embedded limb, and held it in place with crushing force. With the other, he generated a laser at point-blank range, and fired into Junsei's shoulder. The explosion between them pushed AFO back through the air while hurling Junsei down through several buildings in succession. But Junsei's arm remained lodged in AFO's torso. It was torn free from Junsei's body. AFO plucked the severed limb away as golden light flared through his torso, sealing the wound instantly. His gaze followed the place where Junsei crashed. He intended to keep his enemy within his sight. Then, he felt the severed arm in his grip grow heavier, followed by a sharp pain piercing the hand holding it. When AFO looked down, he saw the detached limb growing bones and flesh. Within 2 seconds, an upper torso and head formed from the stump of the arm. The newly formed head snapped open for glowing blue eyes that stared right at him. AFO reacted at last, flinging the grotesque being away with explosive force. The instant he did, pain tore through his back and teeth sank into his neck. He groaned, twisting his eyes sideways just enough to see Junsei clamped onto him, fangs embedded deep into his neck trying to tear it off. AFO fired another laser blindly over his shoulder. The blast sent Junsei crashing away. He soared higher into the sky, blood streaming down his back and collar. Golden light enveloped him once more, sealing torn flesh and punctured muscle. He looked back and down. Junsei stood amid the rubble below, naked and staring up. His mouth smeared with AFO's blood. AFO didn't understand how he appeared behind him like that. His gaze shifted to where the severed arm had fallen. Another naked Junsei stood there. Finally he looked farther toward where he had thrown Junsei first. A third Junsei stood among the ruins. This one still wore pants, and had 2 arms intact. He was watching him. "He can create clones from severed parts of his body," he muttered. One from the arm. Was the other from the tongue? A/N, Google starfish regeneration. His mind raced, dissecting possibilities. He retreated slightly, attempting to keep all 3 figures within his line of sight. But he realized 2 of them vanished. The original Junsei launched again, crossing the city in a blur before leaping toward him. "You relentless freak!" AFO snapped. He fired another laser, blasting Junsei down again. Only for pain to explode across his chest and his back. 2 heavy presences latched onto him simultaneously. Teeth tore into his right shoulder and left arm. AFO groaned, glancing sideways. No one was there. Only blood pouring from him, and four glowing eyes hovering in empty air at each side. His blood ran cold. With a roar, both his arms and the muscles along his back bulged grotesquely. He released a violent omnidirectional blast. The shockwave tore through the surrounding air, blasting the invisible attackers away, and demolishing nearby buildings in all directions. Golden light erupted around him once more, sealing his injuries. But this time, he breathed unevenly. He scanned the devastation, searching desperately for Junsei and his clones. He can turn invisible as well, he muttered. Then Junsei's earlier words resurfaced in his mind, I will devour you. AFO felt something unfamiliar stir inside him. Junsei was not merely trying to defeat him. He was trying to eat him literally. He had lived for more than a century. He had fought countless enemies, heroes, vigilantes, and rivals. Never once had he faced someone who sought to consume him alive. A seed of fear and worry formed inside. His regeneration required stamina. Each use drained him incrementally. He could not sustain it indefinitely. And the freak of nature circling him was trying to take pieces of him. Bite by bite. If he failed to end this, he would be eaten. Dust erupted from 3 different directions. AFO did not need sight to understand what that meant. Junsei was going to resume the attack any moment. Without hesitation, AFO pivoted midair and shot forward, weaving between the distant standing buildings. He deliberately lowered his altitude, forcing the chase to be among buildings and civilians. If Junsei wished to reach him, he would have to navigate through them. At the same time, AFO calculated. Regeneration consumed a lot of stamina, and so did creating flesh clones from severed body parts. He would drag this out and exhaust the freak. Behind him, 3 angry roars overlapped. The sound shattered windows across the district. Then they gave chase. AFO crossed streets at extreme speed, firing lasers at any Junsei that closed the distance. In their wake, buildings began to fall, vehicles and pavement were all getting damaged or destroyed. Destruction followed wherever the two went. But within moments, AFO realized something critical. Junsei was not slowing down. He was not avoiding obstacles. He was smashing through buildings without hesitation while concrete shattered around him. Civilians fled or were crushed beneath debris or torn apart by Junsei. The freak was destroying and killing everything standing in its path. The destruction nor the casualties mattered to him, the freak was locked onto him and only him. AFO turned around and fired a laser at one of the advancing clones. The beam struck cleanly, detonating the body and sending it tumbling down the street in flames. Before the smoke cleared, another clone burst from the side of a building and unleashed a violent sound attack. AFO twisted aside. The sound wave scraped past him, distorting the air. The clone he had just blasted apart reformed mid-fall and lunged again. He gritted his teeth and ascended abruptly, avoiding their converging assault. The pursuing clone slammed into a nearby building, causing it to begin collapsing inward. AFO did not look back. His eyes were on the original Junsei that appeared above him. The original punched him straight down. AFO crashed through a building floor by floor, concrete shattering beneath his body in rapid succession. When he struck the final level, he stabilized instantly and looked around. He saw the terrified people all around him and realized that he had landed inside a hospital. The realization barely formed before the ceiling ruptured. Junsei descended after him. AFO's arm reshaped into a massive blade and slashed forward. Junsei caught the blade in his jaws. The blade shattered between his teeth. AFO ignited golden fire from his foot, blasting Junsei backward while propelling himself through the hospital interior in the opposite direction. Walls collapsed as he forced his way through corridors. He headed straight for a window and froze. The 2 clones waited outside. Hands extended and palms glowing. AFO's eyes widened. He detonated sideways instead, bursting through interior walls again as an eruption of fire consumed the space behind him. He could hear the scream of people inside. No doubt the explosion had claimed the lives of tens of people. He exited the hospital in a violent spray of debris and glanced back. Flames climbed the hospital as parts of it began crumbling down. Junsei and both clones burst through the rubble moments later, continuing the pursuit. As he fled, AFO replayed Junsei's earlier words about humanity. The inherited sin, and the existence of humans itself, is a transgression against life. He analyzed it clinically from the way Junsei was fighting. Junsei was not merely violent or a person with a villainous or greedy heart as society tends to put it. He was ideologically hostile to humanity as a whole. A psychopath driven by genocidal mania against humans. AFO compared himself to Junsei. He sought power, control, authority, and the satisfaction of dominance. To see society kneel. Junsei, in contrast, seemed to desire extinction. I am indulging in the sin of taking, so I am the most human, AFO muttered. He is an enemy of humanity, so he is a demon. The seed of fear began to sprout in AFO's heart. This was not a fight between good and evil, or evil against evil. This was a demon hunting a human to eat, nothing more and nothing less. AFO activated his sensory quirk again. Two presences running at his flanks completely invisible, while the original followed from behind him. Then all three accelerated simultaneously, closing distance to him. They clearly intended to lunge at him from three different directions. AFO's hands and back bulged grotesquely. He released another omnidirectional shockwave. The blast hurled all three away, scattering them across rooftops and streets. His breathing was growing uneven. He understood the three were not hunting him mindlessly. They were coordinated, relentless, and changing strategies. He thought to himself, how do I eliminate them? And then a solution surfaced. Momo. If he caught the girl again, he could use her as leverage against Junsei. At the very least, he could stop this relentless hunt and escape alive. In the future, once he finds a way to eliminate Junsei, they can have a second battle. AFO turned toward the direction where the battle had begun. He shot forward at full speed. He needed to capture the girl again. Chapter 74, The World. 1,614 words. AFO pierced through the night sky at full speed toward where the girl should be. From the start of the fight until now, no more than 10 minutes had passed. She had to still be in the same approximate location. He glanced behind. Junsei was following. The two clones were invisible again. AFO activated his sensing quirk and immediately searched for the clones. He found them right beside the original. His eyes moved then forward toward his destination. He was already nearing the courthouse. His eyes scanned the area from where this hunt started and saw that two ambulances had arrived. His target was laying on a stretcher, being moved into one of them. At the same time, Junsei realized what AFO was trying to do and roared in rage, the sound shaking the entire area. Heroes nearby froze, alarmed. Some trembled at the sound, others, like Endeavor, braced themselves for a possible battle. The Junsei clones moved ahead of the original. The original Junsei tilted backward mid-leap, aligning his body horizontally. The two clones mirrored him, moving in the opposite direction and slightly ahead. The three pressed their feet together. Then they unleashed themselves, doubling their speed. Junsei shot off in the opposite direction, while the two clones surged toward AFO at velocities faster than sound. AFO roared as he closed in on Endeavor. Out of my way. But before he could do anything, the clones slammed into him first from behind, causing him to crush face first into the ground. Fangs and claws pierced him mercilessly in the back. Pain flared as his back's muscles bulged. He released a shockwave, the third one tonight. But this one was much weaker than his previous blasts. He reduced the output intentionally, in fear a full power blast would kill the girl in the ambulance. Still, the shockwave was strong enough to do the job. It lifted the two clones dozens of meters in the air, separating them from his back. AFO flipped onto his back. One arm morphed into black tentacles, shooting upward and wrapping around the clones. He twisted upright, his gaze locking on Endeavor and the girl behind him. He roared, "Give me the girl." His other hand rose, ready to strike. Then something strange happened. The two clones who were invisible became visible again and began bulging, their stomachs inflating like balloons, while the rest of their bodies were shriveling. Heroes nearby, including Endeavor, raised their heads, momentarily forgetting AFO due to the grotesque sight above them. AFO, seeing the strange reactions of so many people, looked up in alarm. "What is this now?" he growled. Before he could react, the stomachs exploded. Blood and bones rained down faster than bullets, piercing his body. Pain tore through him. /N, Google see cucumber, sandbox trees, and exploding ants. Nature is wild. A suicide attack. AFO managed to croak despite the pain. But it didn't stop there. The blood moved strangely across the ground, spreading like living fungus. Before anyone could comprehend it, the blood began seeping into AFO's body through the open wounds left by the bones and the crashing attack earlier. Alarm surged through AFO. He spewed fire in every direction, incinerating the blood and flesh around him. Simultaneously, golden light began sealing his wounds. But it was too late. Blood was already inside his body, and he could feel something was moving inside him. Pain exploded through his body. He turned toward the heroes and Momo. "Give me the girl," he screamed in desperation. Endeavor moved forward, planning to stop AFO. However, AFO had no time to waste. He stomped the ground, causing it to turn into a clay-like substance and forcing Endeavor to lose his footing and sink inside it. He followed by a wave from his hand, a localized shockwave hurled Endeavor to the side. Every hero nearby was alarmed, fear etching their faces. AFO attempted to approach the ambulance, but instead he groaned in pain. He spoke in a panicked voice, Why can't I walk?" He looked down at his body, and saw blue light moved within his veins, slowly spreading from where the blood had entered earlier. At that moment, the original Junsei arrived behind him. AFO twisted his upper body and head toward him. He screamed, "What are you doing to me?" Junsei's four eyes glowed coldly as he spoke in his inhuman voice, "Devouring you from the inside." Junsei began walking slowly toward the panicked AFO. The heroes watched, frozen. Even All Might, who had entered the ambulance earlier, stepped out, his eyes widening at the scene unfolding before him. AFO gritted his teeth, and said in rage and desperation, "You freak of nature. I won't let you eat me." Junsei kept moving closer to him, and when he was 2 steps away from AFO raised his hand in one last desperate effort, reaching for Junsei's head. Junsei didn't try to stop him or dodge. AFO's smile twisted into something crazed. "You arrogant bastard. I will take your quirk." Then, in an instant, Junsei found himself drawn into an empty, lifeless space. The ground beneath him was gray and completely dead. The sky above was oppressive black, winds howling as if mourning a world that never existed. He looked down at his hands. They were back to normal. A giant AFO materialized in the void, towering over him. The voice boomed, maniacal. "You arrogant bastard. I will take your quirk." Junsei looked up. The man's smile was unsettlingly wide. At that moment, cracks of blue light spread across the dead ground beneath them. AFO's smile faltered. "What is going on?" AFO said, confusion creeping into his tone. His expression shifted into horror as glowing blue figures began emerging behind Junsei. One by one they appeared, then multiplied, filling the void around them. The sky above lit up with them, endless and unrelenting. Millions upon millions of figures, as far as the eye can see. AFO staggered back slightly. "Those are why are they here?" The figures turned to beams of lights and shooed upward, merging into a single, beyond colossal entity. AFO stared, frozen, shock etched across his features. Junsei looked up as well and widened his eyes slightly. All life. From the very beginning, everyone was wrong, this is not a quirk, he whispered. His eyes widened as he turned toward Junsei. You are not human, you really are a demon. Outside the vestige world, the heroes were watching as AFO placed his hand atop Junsei's head, but the moment stretched unnervingly. Then the ground itself began to glow a radiant blue. The night sky shimmered with countless glowing birds circling overhead. The heroes looked around in confusion and worry, when they heard AFO speak, his tone trembling in unhidden fear. What is going on? Those are why. Why are they here? All life from the very beginning, everyone was wrong. This is not a quirk, you are not human, you really are a demon. He lowered his hand and turned slowly, his gaze scanning the shocked faces of heroes, then finally settled on All Might. The blue light reached his face, and both of his eyes glowed blue. He spoke, his voice filled with resignation. Humans can't fight the world. My only regret is that I won't get to see you die first, All Might. Then his right eye burst. But no blood came. Instead, a blue rose bloomed in its place. AFO still. Junsei stepped past AFO and AFO's body followed silently, unnervingly, keeping pace. The heroes instinctively stepped back, fear filling them. Best Jeanist moved carefully to Junsei's side, then behind him, watching with caution, he was prepared to capture them. Suddenly, Junsei stopped. His head rotated 180 degrees like an owl, staring directly at Best Jeanist and growled threateningly. The hero recoiled in alarm and stepped back, any thoughts of capturing them fleeing his mind. Meanwhile, AFO continued toward Momo. All Might stepped forward alarmed. Back off, human. The command came from AFO, but the voice was identical to Junsei's in human voice. All Might froze. His gaze shifted to Junsei, whose head now turned toward him. All Might stepped back. A golden tentacle erupted from AFO's hand and touched Momo. Light spread across her body. When it receded, the burn marks were gone. Then, he touched her head gently, restoring her quirk. Once done, AFO turned toward Junsei and began walking toward him. The blue light under his skin began receding, and with it, his body grew weaker, smaller and lifeless. While the blue rose in his eye intensified its glow with every passing moment. He stopped in front of Junsei. Cracks began forming across his body. Junsei extended his hand. He plucked the rose from AFO's eye socket. The heroes watched in stunned silence as the great villain crumbled into dust. Junsei opened his mouth and ate the flower. The blue cracks in his body glowed even brighter, as the pearl floating in the hole of his chest grew in size a few times. His skin tone changed until it was as white as his hair. Simultaneously, a white sleek tail with a glowing blue tip grew from his back. Junsei then moved to look at the heroes around him, they were all staring at him in fear. Wherever his eyes landed, the hero would take a step back. Junsei lowered himself slightly as if preparing to attack, but then he glanced toward Momo. The next moment, he shot away in the middle of the dark night, and with his leave the birds in the sky dispersed. No one of the heroes dared to move. Chapter 75, The Predator Theory. 1,548 words. Japan woke to tragedy the next morning. News spread before sunrise. A devastating battle had erupted in Tokyo shortly after midnight. Entire streets were left in ruin. Tens of buildings had been completely destroyed. Hundreds more were damaged. Even a hospital had not been spared. Rescue teams and heroes worked through the night, combing through debris in search of survivors. Sirens did not stop. Stretchers moved in endless lines. The initial estimate was nearly 3,000 were counted among the injured and the dead. A disaster that lasted only minutes, but its scars would remain for years. And all of it was caused by Yue's infamous student fight with a villain. Earlier that same day, the boy had already shocked the nation. In the middle of a trial, he had declared that All Might was dying. He attacked the prosecutor. He disregarded the law. He showed open contempt toward the judges. Before night fell, the news had spread across Japan. The country was divided into two camps, those who believed him, and those who refused to. Many demanded immediate answers regarding the state of the symbol of peace. Official statements were delayed. Then came the sudden nighttime broadcast. By morning, most of Japan believed it now, the symbol of peace was no more, All Might had reached his limit, and he was defeated last night. They also learned of a name long buried in the darkest decades of the nation's recent history, All for One. The hidden evil ruling the underworld. Years ago, All Might had defeated that villain at the cost of his declining power and broken health. But the villain had returned and intended to announce it publicly by killing the greatest hero, to spread fear and destabilize society. What no one expected was the arrival of the infamous student. Mori Junsei. Any ambiguity about his nature was gone in the footage. No one could describe him as misunderstood. No one could frame him as a student with great potential, but reckless and misguided. His actions and his words were too clear. The public saw and heard enough. There were eyewitnesses and fragmented clips of the fight throughout the city. Adding his view on humanity being dark and extremist, he had reached the point where could fight, with a complete disregard for human life, casualties meant nothing to him. Killing villains on Island was not due to a mistake or circumstances, everyone believed he aimed to kill, that he enjoyed the concept of killing humans. But the live broadcast had ended shortly after the battle began. The public did not see how it truly ended. The official statement was that AFO had fallen in battle and died at the hands of Mori Junsei. Afterward, Junsei fled the city immediately. His current location was unknown. Junsei was now wanted nationwide for multiple crimes, including mass civilian casualties and destruction of public infrastructure. Then came the leak. The mysterious orphanage kidnapping from over a decade ago had a single survivor. Junsei. Further reports confirmed that Junsei had survived alone in the wilderness for 6 years afterward. Some felt a flicker of sympathy over this tragic backstory. But most did not. To the majority, he was not a victim, he was just a monster born from darkness. A monster beyond redemption and threat to everyone. Calls for justice rose as the people wanted heroes and police to find and defeat the monster. Inside the principal's office at UA High School, Nisa sat silently thinking of Junsei. 3 days had passed since he vanished to an unknown destination. 3 days of Japan's police force and heroes searching for him and checking every possible lead. And yet no one could figure where he had gone. It was as if he had disappeared from the world entirely, and perhaps that was for the best. Nisa dreaded what Junsei might do if heroes or police found him after what he had done to All for One. He found the attempts to be foolish at best, no one truly understood his limits, and from what he showed already, it is fair to say he is the most dangerous individual in Japan. Anything short of a team of well-organized top heroes would not suffice to face him. If someone had told him, prior to that night, that heroes were going after Junsei, he would have worried for Junsei's safety. After the battle, however, that perspective had inverted completely. He had underestimated him severely. Nisa's mind drifted back to the sports festival. He remembered the moment cracks began appearing across Junsei's body. At the time, everyone, including him, had concluded those fractures marked his limit. If the confrontation had continued, it would have been difficult but ultimately manageable. The heroes would have prevailed. Not once had it crossed Nisa's mind that the cracks were not a ceiling. They were some sort of a threshold. He replayed the recordings again and again. His words, the transformation and the roar. Even after seeing it so many times, it still sent shivers down his spine. If even he was shaken watching that footage, what of ordinary civilians? Even if there had been no casualties that night, Junsei's words combined with that monstrous form, and the inhuman roar were enough to carve fear into the public psyche. Society barely tolerates what it can categorize as somewhat different and peaceful. Junsei crossed the lines of being a monster to society in both looks and mentality. Nizu tapped a paw thoughtfully against his desk. Before transforming, Junsei had already demonstrated he could cause a person to explode from the inside, an act disturbingly similar to what All for One had done to Sai. After transforming, his physical abilities noticeably increased. Then came his clones. They were independent, could go invisible, and were capable of self-detonation. And it was reasonable to assume the original possessed their abilities. But the greatest anomaly remained at the conclusion of the battle. Junsei had somehow taken control of All for One's body. Forced him to heal Yayorozu Momo and restore her quirk. Then reduced the most notorious villain in Japan's history to dust and a blue glowing flower, which he consumed. Hero's accounts confirmed additional changes in Junsei's body afterward. He grew more monstrous. It was a rational presumption that he had grown stronger after eating the flower. Nizu leaned back slightly. What was Ao's quirk? Nizu kept going back to this thought. It was not mimicry or copy in the conventional sense. They had a student like that and his quirk had a clear working frame and logic behind it. Junsei's felt random and illogical. When Junsei witnessed an ability, he did not replicate it perfectly. Instead, he produced something functionally similar somehow. I am certain it is not copying, it is more like an inspiration, or interpretation of what he sees, Nizu said to himself. Nizu recalled AFO's final words. The heroes present told him AFO sounded desperate and delusional the whole time after they returned. His urgency to retrieve Momo had been logical, he was being hunted relentlessly. But what did he mean by his words? And why did he fear being eaten instead of being killed? AFO was an old, powerful and intelligent villain, such a peculiar choice of words was not random or due to fear. AFO probably meant every word he had said. And in a sense he was right, he was eaten at the end. Nizu paused at that line of reasoning. Junsei did not see himself as human, and his behavior reflected that. He lived among humans, but never integrated. He observed habits and learned from them while maintaining a safe distance. And when he finally chose to show himself and fight, he hunted down and ate the target. It was like how predators behaved in nature. Blending within the environment, studying the prey, identifying weaknesses, and striking at the correct moment without mercy. Nizu's first conversation with Junsei resurfaced in his memory. I was born into their image. My only solace is knowing I am life's answer to their evolution. At the time and with everything else being said and the revelation of his brother being reborn a human, he had not thought of it too much, just a part of his brother's extreme bias against humanity. Now he reconsidered. Junsei did not believe himself to be human at all, he was only born in their image. Born and raised among humans, hidden in plain sight. It was his natural camouflage. He was observing humans and learning from them. If one took Junsei's words at that time at face value, humans stole life from nature and evolved quirks. He was nature's answer to human evolution and a way to restore what was stolen. Then Junsei was an apex predator evolved to hunt humans, or at least that was the truth in his mind. If human existence is a sin, then removing that sin is a virtue. And previously, he feared humans thinking he was not able to win. Now after seeing what heroes are capable of during the I-Island attack and AFO, Junsei could grow more bold and start fighting the sin. If that was indeed the case, then Nizu dreaded what Junsei could do next. Chapter 76, A Glimpse into the Past. 1863 words. 1 week after the battle, the Yayorozu mansion welcomed 3 visitors. Principal Nizu, Eraserhead, and the now officially retired All Might. Inside the mansion, they were received in a spacious guest room, where Mr. Yayorozu sat opposite them. He acted composed and dignified, but the faint shadows beneath his eyes betrayed exhaustion. The UA staff took their seats across from him. Nizu began. Thank you for meeting us on such short notice, Mr. Yayorozu. I understand the past week has not been easy for you, especially after returning to Japan. Junsei's situation caught everyone off guard. Mr. Yaoyorozu inclined his head slightly. It is an unpleasant development. When I first met him years ago, I did not imagine matters would escalate to this point. His tone remained measured. I know you are searching for information about Junsei. As I told the police, and every official who came before you, I do not know his whereabouts or what he intends to do. The only place that comes to mind is the forest where I found him. Or any forest in this country, for that matter. My daughter knows no more than I do. Niza nodded. I have reviewed your statements and the police reports. However, I would still like to speak with Momo directly. Mr. Yaoyorozu's eyes narrowed. She does not possess information I have not already provided. I would prefer to leave her out of this. She has endured sufficient interrogations. I understand your concern, Niza replied calmly. But sometimes what is dismissed as insignificant becomes vital later. Mr. Yaoyorozu, Junsei harbors deep resentment toward people. I fear the next time we hear of him, it may be through another tragedy. Silence lingered between them. Unless this is mandated by law, Mr. Yaoyorozu said evenly, I will not subject my daughter to another interrogation. That is final. All Might spoke next. I understand your concern. I truly do. And I am ashamed to admit this. But none of his teachers can claim to understand what is happening inside his mind. He paused, eyes lowering briefly. We cannot predict his behavior. We do not know whether he would intentionally cause another tragedy because of his hatred, or if he would retreat and live in isolation. At present, we have only speculation. The person who understands him best is Momo. And part of the reason he acted as he did was to save her. Mr. Yaoyorozu's frown deepened. He did not respond. Seconds passed in heavy silence. Then a knock sounded. Before anyone could speak, the door opened and Momo stepped inside. Mr. Yaoyorozu began, Momo. It's fine, Dad, she said gently, interrupting him. They are my teachers. And I have questions of my own. Mr. Yaoyorozu hesitated. Then, slowly nodded. Nizu erased her head, and All Might observed her carefully. She looked exhausted. Her complexion was paler than usual. Her eyes were faintly red. Eraserhead spoke first, voice softer than usual. How are you feeling? Is there any lingering discomfort? Momo offered a small, restrained smile. I'm fine. When I woke up, all my injuries were gone. My quirk had returned as well, thanks to Junsei. Eraserhead gave a slight nod. I'm glad to hear that, Niza said. Momo's gaze shifted to him. Do you believe he will attack and kill more people intentionally? Nizu answered honestly. This is only a theory, based on what I observed and what I heard from him. Nothing is confirmed. But I believe he views himself as a creature born to hunt humans and restore stolen life. He thinks when a human kills a creature, they steal life and prevent it from returning to nature. Momo nodded slowly. He told me something similar. He said he can see life, and that humans steal it from nature. Nizu leaned forward slightly. Did he ever elaborate? About his understanding of life, or the nature of his quirk? She shook her head at first. Then she paused, searching her memory. He once said, life is a cycle. When something dies, life moves on. It grows and evolves. Humans break the cycle. Nizu asked again, anything else? Does life have anything to do with his quirk? Momo shook her head. A brief silence settled over the room. When he first came here, Nizu continued, was he particularly interested in something? Did he focus on a specific topic, anything that stood out? Momo lowered her gaze, thinking back. When he first learned about the internet, the first thing he searched was where humans come from. And what their purpose is. She hesitated. He said there was an emptiness inside humans. Nizu's eyes narrowed slightly. Emptiness? I don't know exactly what he meant. It was something he could feel with his quirk. He said animals don't have emptiness, only humans do. Anything else unusual that caught his attention? Momo replied no, he read myths, history, and religious texts. He was trying to find answers about humanity's origin. He also showed interest in biology and evolution theory. Nizu replied, I see. Were there any incidents in the past? Did he ever harm anyone? Momo shook her head immediately. He didn't like speaking to others, but he never acted aggressively. Eraserhead leaned forward slightly. Were there accidents no one could explain? His abilities are versatile. Invisibility alone would make many things possible. Momo began to shake her head again. There weren't any. She stopped. Eraserhead's gaze sharpened. Something came to mind. Years ago, she said slowly, 3 students from our school and their families were found dead. The case was never solved. Eraserhead spoke plainly. You think he could be responsible? Momo lowered her head. I don't know. But one of those students was with Junsei in the orphanage. Junsei didn't think well of him. He said that boy tried to kill him. Her eyes widened slightly as realization formed. They died the same night Junsei met Sykes. Her voice dropped to a whisper. All these years ago, did he kill people? The 3 UA staff exchanged glances. If Junsei could turn invisible back then, and with his strength being enough to overwhelm professional heroes, then he had both the means and the motive. His quirk had been mischaracterized from the beginning. That would have removed him from suspicion entirely. Mr. Yaoyorozu had forgotten about what Junsei had done back then. It was a horrible misunderstanding that led to Junsei eliminating what he believed to be a threat to Momo. Mr. Yaoyorozu believed it would remain buried forever and never expected it to resurface. He looked at Momo. Don't overthink it. I believe this particular incident may be a coincidence. Nizu turned to him. Why do you believe so? Mr. Yaoyorozu exhaled slowly. Sai told me back then that Junsei always lived on edge, prepared to fight for his life at any moment. It took a long time before he relaxed here. I do not deny the possibility, but someone constantly afraid of his surroundings does not seek unnecessary confrontation. Fearful individuals run from threat. He paused. Momo, do you remember whether he met or spoke with the other 2 victims at the time? She shook her head. No. We only saw one of them. Mr. Yaoyorozu nodded faintly. If it were only the family of the one he hated, that would be plausible. But 3 separate families? A scared person won't take such risks. Momo's expression hardened slightly. Junsei is intelligent when he chooses to be. He could have done it as a misdirection to confuse everyone. And if he thought of Sykes as bad and dangerous, it would be better to remove the threat early on. Her fist tightened. If he truly did that, then what else did he do over the years? Momo's eyes teared at the thought. Mr. Yaoyorozu fell silent then sighed. The 3 teachers watched the father and daughter pair. From their point of view, Mr. Yaoyorozu was defending Junsei for Momo's sake. She looks too affected by this. If Junsei had been killing as far back as those years without anyone connecting the dots, then this was not necessarily a recent change. Momo suddenly lifted her head, her gaze fixed on Nizu. Sir, what is your relationship with Junsei, truly? You gave him the nickname Ao and used it more than once. He calls you Okina. The 2 of you behaved strangely from the moment you met. Her voice steadied. And after the trial, you said you are going to die again. What did you mean? Eraserhead turned slowly toward Nizu. He remembered hearing those words that day but never had the opportunity to question them. Events had spiraled too quickly. All Might also looked at Nizu, silent but attentive. Nizu felt their eyes on him, suspicion and curiosity. He exhaled quietly as he weighed the options. The truth sounded absurd. If believed, it could bring further trouble upon Junsei. Yet how much worse could the situation become? The boy was already declared a national threat. Refusing to answer would plant mistrust. Lying would be worse, especially with Junsei still at large. A single contradictory sentence from him could unravel everything. Nizu closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. No word of this leaves this room. It could bring trouble to everyone involved. Curiosity only grew hearing that. I was born in a laboratory, Nizu said calmly. The scientists named me Nizu Okina. I had a brother. Nizu Ao. Momo blinked. You named Junsei after your brother. Nizu continued, we endured inhumane experimentation. We fought and protected each other to survive. Nizu lifted a paw, tracing the faint scar across his eye. The scientists concluded that while Ao possessed superior strength, while I had superior intelligence. In truth, I believe Ao was as intelligent as I was or perhaps more. He simply refused to cooperate. He hated the scientists. He understood our captivity for what it was. Nizu paused. I hoped the experiments would eventually stop. Ao knew they would only worsen. So he did something none of the scientists anticipated. Nizu closed his eyes. He took his own life. Shock flickered across everyone's face. Momo asked. But what does that have to do with Junsei? Nizu looked directly at her. Junsei is Ao. He was reborn as a human, with his memories intact along with his deep-seated hatred for humans. He recognized me the day we met at UA. Everyone stared at Nizu as if he was crazy. That cannot be true, All Might said slowly. How would that even be possible? Perhaps you were mistaken or misled by him. I considered that, Nizu replied. Repeatedly. I do not understand the mechanism. But I believe Ao awakened a quirk back then, one that allowed his consciousness to persist and reincarnate. He lowered his gaze slightly. No theory I constructed offered a better explanation. My brother was reborn, of that much I was certain. He looked up again. And since that day, I have tried to help him. To make him let go of the prejudice and hatred he carries toward humanity. A pause. In the end, I failed. Chapter 77, The World Cannot Be Fought. 1672 words. After a few seconds of silence, All Might was the first to speak. AFO said Junsei was not human, that he was truly a demon. Perhaps he discovered something when he attempted to steal Junsei's quirk. He also said everyone was wrong about it, that it is not a quirk. And then, humans can't fight the world. All Might set his gaze on Nizu. AFO ruled from the shadows for generations. He was a calculating and composed villain. I found it strange that he spoke like that at the end, as if he had lost his sanity. But sir, perhaps some of it was true. Junsei is not human, at least his true origin is not. So maybe what he possesses is not a quirk. Or not a quirk as we understand the term. Mr. Yaoyorozu straightened slightly. Now that you mention it, when I investigated his past at the orphanage, the earliest medical records listed him as quirkless. He is missing the extra joint in his pinky toe. It was not until later that they concluded he had a quirk. Eraserhead narrowed his eyes. I cannot erase his quirk, he said evenly. My ability has no effect on him. During the sports festival, Shinso's brainwashing failed as well. Junsei was the only person who ever resisted Shinso's quirk. Nizu thought it over. Junsei being quirkless was an absurd thought. Taking AFO's final words as objective truth would be foolish. But in the light of the strangeness surrounding Junsei's quirk, his words have some truth to them. Junsei himself had once said the name is accurate, but the description is entirely wrong. Had he been implying he was never using a quirk at all? Momo spoke quietly. So, Junsei could be quirkless. And what he has been doing is something completely different. Nizu finally spoke. It is an interesting hypothesis. However, it contradicts our entire scientific understanding of human evolution and quirk manifestation. I find it more plausible that he possesses an extremely complex quirk. That may also explain AFO's reaction. He encountered a quirk that he couldn't comprehend. All Might's eyes narrowed slightly. And what about the statement, humans can't fight the world? What did he mean? Nizu shook his head slowly. I do not know. I am afraid only Junsei could give us an insight of what this is about. Meanwhile, far from civilization, deep within a forest, hidden behind layers of trees and stone, a cave lay concealed. Inside, Junsei rested in a fetal position. His body was encased in a cocoon-like shell of blue light. It pulsed faintly, rhythmically, as though breathing. He had not moved since that night. Outside the cave, the forest behaved strangely. If one looked carefully, they would notice an unusual gathering, animals lingering, birds perched in silent watch, insects clustering along the branches. They circled the area in quiet patterns as if guarding something precious. While the world moved on outside, within Junsei's mind, memory unfolded like an endless archive. He watched the life of Shigaraki Zen, better known to the world as AFO. He observed the birth of the twins. The chaos of that era. Society fractured and authority was absent. People fought and killed each other, humans versus meta-humans. There was no place for human mercy or goodness. From the first breath, AFO showed his greed and possessiveness. He was the embodiment of humanity in its purest form. Junsei watched his gradual rise. A quirk that allowed him to steal and give quirks. How he used to kill and hurt the people around him, how he found control and safety in chaos and fear. He grew up from a bloodthirsty, greedy, and selfish child to a monster full of hubris. During this period of his life, he was completely unstoppable, and the world bowed to his will. But then came the resistance. The kidnapping of his little brother. AFO stormed the camp without hesitation. He killed through opposition to reclaim what he believed was his. In doing so, he killed the very person he sought to restore. Junsei watched the aftermath. AFO analyzed his brother's remaining hand. Concluded that his brother must have possessed a quirk, one too weak to manifest, perhaps stunted by malnourishment. Junsei observed silently until the confrontation with the second user of One for All. And then for the first time, AFO cried. The memory froze. Junsei turned his head slightly. Beside him stood another figure, bound in blue, glowing vines. Unable to move. Forced to witness his own past. Junsei spoke. The only emotions I ever sensed from you were greed and arrogance. Why did you feel sadness at that moment? The restrained figure replied calmly. You can see my memories. Hear my thoughts. Feel what I felt. And you still ask. I do not understand the process of your thoughts, Junsei answered. AFO's expression shifted faintly. Some things do not have process. Why do I fixate on my weak, useless little brother? It simply feels right. How? He is my brother. My first possession. His existence belonged to me. He lived because of me. His tone hardened. But he rejected me. Even in death, he continued to reject me. I was angry. And sad. It should not have ended that way. He should have remained at my side. Junsei regarded him. That does not make sense. Nothing in your life up to this point shows you would care about losing something. You believe what you see belongs to you, and if it doesn't then it will be destroyed. AFO's eyes narrowed. Tell me, why did you want to save the girl? Why did you want to kill me? Your hatred for all humans is clear to anyone watching. You hate our very existence. Junsei did not respond. A faint smile appeared on AFO's face. You don't know, do you? You are acting against your own thoughts, and it confuses you. The memories resumed without Junsei responding. He saw the relentless pursuit of one for all's inheritors. Each attempt to retrieve the quirk. Each failure. He witnessed the meeting with Garaki Kyudai. The research that followed. All human morals and laws were ignored. He learned of the duplication of quirks. The longevity quirk granted to AFO. Crimes escalated. Kidnappings. Human experimentation. The creation of Nomu. Then the order to attack the orphanage. A single objective, to steal Sally's rare healing quirk. Junsei watched without reaction. He observed AFO work to trap Tamura in darkness and groom him as a successor. Garaki's involvement in shaping that path. Every calculated step. Every backup plan they had. He watched the life of AFO in full until their battle and his defeat. Okina was right, AFO killed Sai and kidnapped Momo because of my words and actions, Junsei thought silently. The memory dissolved. They stood once more in the vestige world, but it was completely different from before. The ground was no longer barren. It was covered in blue flowers stretching endlessly in all directions, while the dark sky had small glowing stars. AFO exhaled slowly. So this is the end. He glanced around. Why did you wish to learn all of this? And why am I still here? Junsei answered plainly. I wanted to take everything from you. Including your name. Your history. I instinctively understood this was how. A faint chuckle escaped AFO. So it was instinct. You did not foresee the outcome. Yes. All of it was my instincts, Junsei confirmed. And now? You will die knowing that everything you built is gone. I will hunt and eliminate anyone who carries your name or your will. Even your work with that doctor will come to an end. I will stop the Nomus. AFO regarded him quietly. I see. Then that is my conclusion. He looked upward briefly. It is unfortunate. I had to fight the world. Junsei narrowed his eyes. Why do you call me that? AFO looked toward the distance. A massive entity loomed over everything. What else should I call what I witnessed? Or that thing over there? Silence followed. After a moment, AFO asked, I am curious. What do you desire? Junsei paused. I do not know. But I dream of a day when the world is free of humans. Then why not act? AFO pressed. What prevents you from killing them all? I cannot defeat all humans. AFO's expression shifted, almost amused. With everything on your side, humans would not stand a chance. You underestimate yourself severely. Abandon doubt and abandon consequence. I assure you, you will win. Junsei studied him. Why encourage me in your final moments? AFO's smile widened faintly. If I can't have it, no one else can. I would rather all of it is gone. This is a good ending for me. You are really a human to the very end, Junsei said. He pointed his hand at AFO and clenched it. The vines began tightening around AFO, and cracks began appearing across his body slowly. AFO spoke, you have taken everything and seen it all. Power and fear are all that matters. As long as you have the power, no one can stop you. As long as the world fears you, they will obey you. Make the world fear to utter your name, freeze at the sight of your shadow, destroy whoever dares to look at you. When you do it, their choice will disappear, so will their opposition. All your desires will come true. AFO's body crumbled under the pressure of the vines. As the echo of his last words remained behind, I know you can do it. Junsei turned to look at the distance, at the entity that instilled despair and belief in AFO. Junsei muttered, "Can I really do it?" Nizu and Momo words appeared in his mind to be better. "What should I do?" Junsei asked himself. In the outside world, after 4 months of AFO's death, the cocoon surrounding Junsei's body began to crack as he opened his eyes. Chapter 78, The World Soul. 2,118 words. The fall of AFO and the retirement of All Might had created a new era of chaos within Japan. From every corner of Japan, criminals and villains began to rise. Some sought to replace AFO as the unseen ruler of the underworld, convinced that they possessed the power to take the vacant throne of the underworld. Others believed that with the strongest hero gone for good, they were finally free to act without restraint. Heroes and police who had once prioritized locating Junsei's whereabouts could no longer afford that focus. The country was fracturing under simultaneous outbreaks of violence. So all investigations were postponed and the task forces were reassigned to handle the villains. Between All Might's retirement and the beginning of a new Udata second semester, the national crime rate surged from just over 2% to 25%. Japan, once the lowest country in crime rate, had exceeded the global average of 20%. When the new school semester began at UA High School, Momo walked through the gate of a school alone for the first time in years. It felt wrong. For so long, Junsei had arrived beside her and left beside her. Now she was all alone. She still struggled to accept how everything had unfolded. There were moments when she wondered if this was some vast misunderstanding. If perhaps there had been context she and everyone else had missed. But she had seen the aftermath of his actions. She had heard his words to AFO. Junsei was not misunderstood. He was a villain, and an extremely dangerous one. She had wished many times for everything to be a bad dream, and she would wake up the next moment. As she walked into the school grounds, there was an immediate shift in the atmosphere around here. Students halted their conversations and slowed as she passed. Some turned and walked away. Others frowned openly. A few did not bother hiding their hostility. Then a group moved to block her path. "I can't believe you dare show your face here after what that monster did," one girl said. Another said, "What kind of hero are you? Living with a monster for years and staying silent. Thousands died because you hid his nature." Voices began to overlap. Students from different classes and different years. All kinds of accusations and insults were directed at her. Students masking their anger and fear as righteousness. Momo lowered her head. They were not entirely wrong. What Junsei had done was unforgivable. But then a familiar voice came from behind Momo. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Hitoshi Shinso stepped forward from behind her, hands in his pockets, expression flat. She had nothing to do with anything Junsei did. One boy frowned. "Stay out of it. Or are you defending your villain friend? Now that I think about it, you've got a villainous quirk too." Shinso chuckled softly. "That's a creative theory. But if anything, I'm saving your lives." The students stiffened. "Imagine," he continued calmly, "if what you're saying reached Junsei's ears. How do you think he would react? You, your families, you'd all be fair game to him. He's a dangerous villain, right?" Silence spread. "And who's going to stop him?" Shinso added. "All Might is gone. And Junsei is probably stronger than All Might in his prime." The color drained from several faces. "I suggest," Shinso said evenly, "that you leave and pretend you saw nothing. I happen to like this school. I'd rather it not shut down because a few idiots couldn't control themselves." No one argued. They dispersed quickly. Whether Shinso was right no longer mattered. The risk was not worth testing. "I think that's the longest I've ever spoken at once," Shinso muttered. Momo turned toward him. "Thank you." "Don't mention it," he replied. "And I meant what I said." I have no interest in finding out how Junsei would react if he heard some idiots were harassing you. She hesitated. Aren't you angry? About what he did? Shinso looked ahead, expression unreadable. What he did has nothing to do with you. You were a victim. Blaming you makes no sense. He paused briefly. I sat next to him for an entire year. Does that make me his accomplice? Momo didn't speak. Shinso exhaled quietly. I didn't want things to turn out like this. As strange as our relationship might sound to others, I considered him a friend. Maybe even a kindred spirit. His words followed by a moment of silence. Anyway, he continued, straightening slightly, I need to get to class. If anyone tries to say something clever again, just remind them Junsei is still out there. That should be enough to discourage most idiots. Momo gave a small nod. He left without further ceremony. She remained standing for a moment longer before turning toward her own classroom. The thought of facing her classmates again, after months, after everything, filled her with worry. After that night, many of them called her, but she didn't answer their calls, she didn't dare to. What was she going to say to them? Minutes later, Momo walked into her classroom. The moment she stepped inside, the entire room went silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. She was the last to arrive for the first time. Momo kept her back straight despite the anxiety she was feeling. Good morning, she said. Mina was on her feet instantly. Are you okay? I was so scared when I saw the news, and I tried to call you. Momo blinked. I am fine, she replied evenly. I was in no mood to speak. She had expected more suspicion and accusation. Instead, to her surprise, her classmates began asking about her well-being one by one. They did not accuse or blame her. They simply had concern for her. It made her feel both foolish and grateful. Kaminari scratched the back of his head. I knew he was super scary and evil, but I didn't expect he was that evil. You're lucky he didn't hurt you. Jiro shot him a sharp look before turning back to Momo. More importantly, where did he go? Do you have any idea? Momo shook her head slowly. He can be anywhere. He didn't try to talk with me, and I don't think he will ever do that. The door slid open again. Aizawa entered the classroom. At this point he said, I think it is for the better. It will cause you only trouble if he tries to communicate with you. You are obliged to share everything you know or you will be considered an accomplice in law. Ida asked. Where could he possibly go without anyone finding him? I heard heroes even searched forests. Bakugo scoffed from his desk. Why not ask that red bird around for his location? He's good friends with all animals, and they rush to help him whenever he fights, right? The one that lived with him should know even more. Momo hesitated. I actually tried to tell Dola to call him, but I am not sure if she can't do it or she doesn't understand me at all without Junsei being around. Aizawa's tired eyes sharpened slightly. Is Dola the bird you had with you on the bus while going to USJ? Momo nodded. It still lives with you. She nodded again. It stuck around. I think she likes the food too much. Aizawa pressed his fingers against his temples. All along we assumed all animals and insects left your home after he left. But that bird could be a lead. His gaze shifted across the classroom. You do realize you have a classmate who can speak and understand animals and insects, right? If it can tell us even the general direction, or whether he communicated with her, that would be a major help. Momo froze. Slowly, she turned her head toward Koji Koda. She had forgotten him completely. Aizawa continued, the principal had many birds captured from all over Japan, and planned to ask Koda to try and find Junsei's location. And you had that bird with you the whole time. Momo lowered her head. I am sorry. I'll inform the principal, Aizawa said at last. After school, we will go to your home to pick the bird up. He looked at Koda. We'll let your parents know you'll be a little late. Momo hesitated. Actually, we might not need to wait that long. She stood up and walked toward the window. The classroom watched in silence as she slid it open. From her pocket, she brought out a small whistle. She blew through it. Only seconds passed before a small figure darted through the open window and into the classroom. Dola landed neatly on Momo's shoulder and chirped. Urarka's eyes fixed on the small bird perched proudly on Momo's shoulder. Does it still follow you to school? I didn't think she would stick with you. Mineta snorted. More like a very greedy bird that abandoned its survival instincts and first friend. Ciro glanced toward Koji Koda and smiled. It's finally your time to shine. At the front of the classroom, Aizawa gave a small nod. We'll go to the principal's office and question the bird there. Mina immediately protested. Not fair. We want to hear as well. Kirishima added eagerly. Not to mention, it was Bakugro who suggested it, and I'm sure he wants to hear as well. Bakugo's head snapped toward him. Don't speak on behalf of me. Ida rose from his seat and spoke in all earnestness. Sensei, please let us listen. We would know anyway through Momo and Koda. Aizawa was silent for a moment, his tired gaze sweeping across the class. Then he exhaled softly. Troublesome children, fine. He shifted his eyes toward Koda. Koda looked around, visibly nervous under the attention, before standing up and walking closer to Momo. Dola watched him with curious eyes. Koda spoke gently. Hello. Do you know where Junsei went to? Dola chirped lightly, tilting her head. Koda blinked. She doesn't know who Junsei is. A brief silence settled over the classroom. Kaminari raised an eyebrow. Dude, are you sure you understand bird language? Koda lowered his head. I am sorry. Momo's brows furrowed as she thought. Then she said quietly, ask her what she calls me. Koda nodded and turned back to the bird. What do you call Momo? Dola tilted her head again. Koda gently pointed at Momo. I am talking about her. The bird chirped brightly, almost cheerfully. Koda translated, the good human with tasty food. Students finally understood what the problem was. Aizawa remained focused. Ask about Junsei again. Try describing him with simple words. Koda nodded. Do you know where the friend of this good human had gone to? The one with white hair and blue eyes, and can talk to you. The bird chirped again. This time, Koda's expression shifted into confusion. Momo asked, what did she say? Koda hesitated. She said, the world soul went to sleep. A ripple of uncertainty and confusion passed through the class. The students did not understand the meaning of those words. They had not heard the final words of AFO. They did not know he had spoken of the world, with an unsettling fear before meeting his end. But Aizawa and Momo had heard about his words from the heroes present. And no one had understood what the world meant. Aizawa's voice lowered. Why does it call him the world soul? What does that mean? Koda translated the question. Dola chirped again, softer this time. Koda swallowed. She said, because he is the beginning that connects all things. The classroom fell completely silent. Koda continued carefully, I asked her what does the beginning mean. She said the beginning is the beginning. The answer was completely unhelpful. Aizawa spoke again. Ask her where he is. Where is he sleeping? Koda relayed the question. Dola's feathers puffed slightly before she chirped in a sharper tone. Koda translated, voice quieter now. Humans are not allowed to know. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Why? Koda's fingers clenched at his sides. She said, most humans are bad and enemies of life. We protect life from bad humans. Aizawa continued questioning, changing the phrasing and attempting different questions to try to pry anything useful out of the bird. Each time, the result was the same. Either the bird refused outright, or her answers dissolved into vague, simplistic fragments that offered no real direction. Whether it was loyalty, instinct, or limited intelligence, the truth remained hidden. But one conclusion grew increasingly difficult to ignore. The final words of AFO had carried some meaning. Chapter 79, I Am Better. 1,616 words. Junsei did not know how much time had passed while he digested the memories of All for One. It did not matter. When he finally opened his eyes inside the cave, the cocoon of blue light dissolved quietly around him. He rose slowly and immediately noted a few things had changed. His hair had grown, falling past his shoulders. His skin was noticeably whiter than before, too pale. His height had increased as well. Where he once stood at 175 centimeters, he now approached 2 meters. His arms felt longer. He walked toward a small pool of water gathered near the cave wall, and looked at his reflection. Under each eye, a small blue gem protruded from his skin. They were embedded seamlessly, grown from within. On his chest, a larger gem was impaled at the center. From it, faint blue veins extended outward beneath the skin, spreading in the distinct shape of a cross. Despite the physical changes, he felt no noticeable increase in strength. His connection to life and his ability to draw upon organisms' aspects felt the same. However, his perception had expanded. Previously, he could sense and connect to creatures within dozens of miles. Now, when he reached outward, the sensation stretched far beyond Japan's borders. The web of life responded faintly across oceans. And then there was the emptiness. For years, he had believed that filling it would require the deaths of millions. In the past few years, he had killed with his own hands. He had directed others to kill for him. Yet the void inside him had remained vast and persistent. Now it had shrunk dramatically. All for One alone had nearly filled it. Junsei placed a hand over the gem in his chest. He was changing into something else as the emptiness diminished. That much was certain. But the question was into what? And what would occur when it was finally gone? The thought lingered. Eventually, his mind shifted to the practical matter of what to do next. His original intention had been to erase All for One's legacy completely. To hunt down every remnant, every follower and possible inheritor of his will. But recalling the memories he had just absorbed, the relentless hunting of the second bearer of One for All, the slaughter of friends and family, he rejected the idea. The thought of him carrying the same desire, and acting in the same manner, as that human disgusted him. He was not a human, and he didn't want to be anything like them. This line of thinking led to questions surfacing in his mind. Was that what it meant to be better? Was that how Okina viewed humanity? His contemplation ended abruptly. A disturbance echoed across his expanded senses. A call. Some distance away, a human was destroying trees. Without hesitation, Junsei shot forward at full speed. The forest blurred around him, and within seconds, he arrived at the source. A blond man tore another tree from the earth with brute force. Junsei narrowed his eyes. Why are you destroying the trees? The man spun around, startled. His gaze ran over Junsei's body. What the hell is a naked guy doing out here? Junsei recognized him instantly from All for One's memories. Muscular. A violent, bloodthirsty criminal. Why are you here? Junsei asked calmly. And why are you destroying trees? At the same time, he extended his senses toward the moon. The amount of life in the moon was significant, layers upon layers of stolen life. Evidence of repeated killing. Muscular's lips stretched into a cruel grin. And what's it to you, weirdo? If you must know, I'm looking for rabbits. They like hiding under trees around here. I'm a little hungry. But since you He did not finish the sentence as Junsei had heard enough. Destroying trees to kill rabbits was unforgivable. Junsei raised his hand. With his nail, he sliced a small cut across his finger. He drew upon the aspect of the archerfish. A thin line of blood shot forward like a bullet. Muscular did not even perceive the attack. When the blood pierced his forehead, his expression froze. Then he collapsed backward, lifeless. Junsei felt the moment life left the body. The emptiness inside him shrank slightly. He observed the corpse. Nowhere near AFO, he muttered. But hundreds of times greater than ordinary people. He considered the implication. Were the worst criminals filled with accumulated stolen life? If so, then he could fill the emptiness quickly by targeting the criminals. At the same time, society won't be provoked into avenging them. Humans didn't care for those labeled different or evil, most would say good riddance. It was a simple functional solution, and a feasible goal to work for in the short term, while avoiding an all-out clash with humans. Based on what AFO's memories showed him, unremarkable humans can use their power in unexpected ways when pushed too far. He didn't want to face unnecessary threats. Before departing, Junsei looked down at Muscular's body, then at his own. If he intended to move among humans to hunt villains, he required clothing. Muscular happened to be nearly the same height. Thanks to AFO's memories, he already had targets in his mind. Matsu removed his apron and clocked out of the grocery store. 10 hours of labor just to be able to sustain a modest life. It was not much. But it was honest. For most of his life, honesty had not been part of his plans. He had been a thug. An evil criminal. Someone who survived through violence and the worst of acts. That changed a few months ago. He had attended the UA Sports Festival with an old associate, more out of boredom than interest. They had laughed at the students. Mocked their dreams. It was entertaining at first. Then they saw him. White hair. Calm glowing blue eyes. Restrained violence ready to erupt any moment. At first they had not recognized him. 10 years was a long time. Children grew up a lot in that period. But during the final match, the white-haired boy had turned his head toward the stands. Directly toward them. As if he had heard their whispers. He started looking around, clearly searching for them. In that instant, the air had left Matsu's lungs. They both understood without needing to speak. It was the same boy from the orphanage. The one they believed they had killed. The little monster was alive. And he remembered what they did. Circumstances had spiraled unexpectedly after that. Chaos in the arena, distractions, evacuation. They escaped before he could find them. But Matsu never forgot that glance. Shortly after, he met her. The woman who changed everything. He could not explain it logically, but her presence, appearing just after that encounter, felt like a sign. A warning wrapped in mercy. A chance to start over and have a proper meaningful life. He severed ties with his old partners. Used the money he had hoarded to purchase a home. He married her quickly, too quickly, some have said. They did not understand. She was his path to run away from the shadows of a dark life. To have his redemption. He knew she was the one. Yesterday they discovered she was pregnant. Today, after finishing his shift, he carried takeout containers in both hands, deciding they would celebrate quietly at home. He opened the door with a smile. "Honey, I'm back." Silence greeted him. The lights on the first floor were off. No sound from the kitchen. But he could see light spilling faintly from upstairs. He stepped forward into the house, heading toward the staircase. Then, "Matsu." The voice came from behind him. He turned. A tall figure stood in the dim living room. White hair. Glowing blue eyes. Matsu's breath caught. "Who the hell are?" The words died in his throat. Recognition struck. You're the monster. Junsei regarded him calmly. It took some effort to find you, even with all for one's memories. Matsu's face was drained of color. My wife, what did you do to her? Does it matter? Junsei replied evenly. You can guess why I am here. Did you hurt her? Matsu's voice cracked. Please, she had nothing to do with what I did. I know, Junsei said. I put her to sleep. I do not go after families. I am no human. Matsu did not understand what he meant, and he did not care about that. Only one thing mattered to him. He dropped to his knees. He said hoarsely. You have every right to take revenge for what I did. Please, just don't hurt her. Junsei's gaze remained steady. I did not kill you immediately because I wanted to clarify something. I am not here for revenge. I do not care about the humans that died. I do not kill for other humans or greed like you. I am better. He stepped forward. You attempted to take my life. You have taken too much life from the world. I am here to restore it. Nothing else. Matsu did not resist. He was not foolish. They had failed to kill him when he was a child. And if even All for One had fallen to this monster, what could he possibly do? Beg? The monster won't spare him, and if he gets angry, he might turn toward his wife. He closed his eyes. I am sorry, he said quietly. For everything. Thank you for sparing her. There was no struggle. No scream. Only the quiet end of a life. Matsu's final thoughts were, I am sorry. I won't be around to see our child. Chapter 80, Criteria. 1,514 words. Within the halls of Jaku General Hospital, Garaki Kudai walked through the corridors slowly. Nurses greeted him with small bows, younger doctors straightened when he passed. As the head of the hospital and one of the founders, he carried himself with quiet authority, pausing to ask about patient charts, to inquire about medications being applied, and to offer brief but thoughtful remarks. Eventually, he reached a room where the patient had a surgery earlier today. He entered it. Inside, a doctor and a nurse stood beside the patient's bed. All three, including the patient, were staring at the mounted television. Garaki cleared his throat lightly. What has captured everyone's attention? The doctor and nurse glanced at him and smiled. Dr. Daruma, the doctor said warmly, using his alias, I see you are hard at work as always. Garaki's lips curved faintly. I would not call it hard work. I am simply doing what is expected of me. His eyes shifted briefly to the screen. Would you care to tell me what has drawn such focus? The doctor exhaled. Another victim has fallen. The serial killer who has murdered dozens of thugs and criminals over the past week has struck again. This time, he killed a man in his own home. No one can claim he is a new vigilante anymore. The nurse's face tightened. They're saying the victim had committed no crimes. Just a poor man trying to live quietly. Garaki sighed. What a terrible era we live in, he said softly. It saddens me to see people descend into such savagery. Does the man have a family? The doctor nodded. A wife. They were married recently. She is expecting a child. The poor woman became a widow overnight, the nurse murmured. Garaki lowered his gaze as though burdened by the weight of it. I hope the heroes and the police find this killer. His actions are unforgivable. As if the people do not suffer enough already. He placed a gentle hand on the bed rail and turned to the patient. I came to examine you, but it appears everything is stable. Your complexion is much improved from yesterday. You should recover soon. The patient nodded gratefully. Garaki offered one final smile before looking at the doctor and nurse. Continue the good work. He left the room. Once the door closed, the nurse sighed. Dr. Daruma is truly kind-hearted. If more people were like him, the world would be better. The doctor beside her nodded. I could not agree more. Garaki continued to walk through the corridor, his expression returning to neutrality the moment he was alone. A serial killer. Dozens of criminals in a week. He wondered if this was merely another fool attempting to fill the void left by his master and friend, all for one. The thought had barely settled when a sharp beeping interrupted him. His hand moved instantly to his coat pocket. He withdrew a small monitoring device. His eyes scanned the screen. Then it widened. The NOMA signatures from the secret laboratory beneath the hospital were gone. Completely gone. Without hesitation, he turned and moved quickly. He took the secured stairwell. 2 minutes later, he stood before the concealed entrance. The lab door slid open. The room was exactly as he had left it. Rows of containment tubes lined the chamber, filled with glowing fluid. Each NOMA floated motionless inside. Garaki stepped forward slowly. They were there. All of them. He looked down at the device again. No readings. No. No, he muttered. Why are they not showing? Did all sensors fail simultaneously? That is statistically improbable. His fingers trembled faintly as he adjusted the monitor. A voice drifted from behind him. They are all dead. Garaki flinched violently, his heart lurching in his chest. He spun around. A tall figure stood several meters away. White hair fell past his shoulders. His skin was unnaturally pale. And his eyes were cold, unblinking. Garaki froze. How did you come here? Who? He stopped. Recognition struck like lightning. It is you. Hatred thickened every syllable. Junsei regarded him without visible emotion. If you mean the one who killed your master, he said evenly, then yes. Garaki's breathing sharpened. You altered your appearance to infiltrate this place. How did you discover it? Through him, Junsei replied. I know everything you did under his orders. Including the creation of the Nomu. Garaki took a step back. Fear and fury warred across his face. You came here to kill me, didn't you? Yes, Junsei answered. I intended to. But looking at you now. Junsei continued, his gaze sweeping over the aging doctor, there is no life in you. You have not taken life with your own hands. Garaki's jaw tightened. What do you mean? I removed the life from all the Nomu, Junsei said calmly. I will not hold you accountable for what you created under all for one's command. Those actions belong to him. Garaki's eyes flickered to the tubes. How, he demanded. How could you kill them all? It does not concern you, Junsei replied. He stepped closer. If you create another Nomu, Junsei said, his voice steady and without emphasis, I will return. And I will kill you. Garaki swallowed. I do not understand you, what is your goal, he asked. You do not need to understand that. All you need to know, he answered, is that if you create them again, I will come after you and I will kill you. Garaki looked at the containment tubes, they stood intact. But inside them, every Nomu was nothing more than an empty shell. He couldn't understand how he could do that without touching them. Garaki's eyes moved back to the young men before him, disbelief tightening the lines of his aged face. He hesitated, then spoke. What are you thinking? If you want the Nomus gone, why not just kill me? Why give me a chance to survive? Junsei regarded him without hostility. You did not steal life with your own hands and the Nomus were for all for one, Junsei said evenly. So I will not kill you because of your association with all for one. But if you give me another reason, if you create Nomu out of your own desire, if you choose it yourself, I will kill you. Garaki's hands curled into fists at his sides, knuckles widening. Why, he demanded. You killed my master. Why this sudden mercy? Junsei's gaze did not waver. Because that is something a human would have done, he replied. Something your master would have done. I refuse to act like you humans. I am better. The words were calm. That composure fractured something inside the old doctor. Shut up! Garaki screamed, his voice echoing sharply off steel and glass. All for One was a god among men. What could someone like you possibly understand? His vision blurred. Tears spilled freely down his cheeks, unrestrained by dignity or pride. Junsei watched him without contempt. I have learned everything he knew, Junsei said. If a god is simply the most human among men, then yes, he was a god. The statement landed heavier than an insult. Garaki's breath hitched. You took his memories. All of it. Garaki didn't take Junsei's words earlier to heart, and had no time to bother understanding the implications, but now hearing it out again, he understood what it meant. Yes. Garaki's shoulders trembled. You killed him and stole his memories, he whispered hoarsely. You are a monster. Junsei did not respond. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Wait! Garaki shouted suddenly. Junsei paused but did not fully turn. If you possess his memories, Garaki said urgently, desperation sharpening his tone, then you understand the quirk singularity. Junsei looked back at him. Garaki's eyes burned through his tears. Do you believe you are the quirk singularity? Junsei's expression did not change. I am not. I am not human and I am quirkless. He turned again and walked away. The laboratory doors slid shut behind him. Garaki stood motionless for several seconds, his breathing uneven. Then his expression hardened. Lies, he muttered. An obvious lie. He turned slowly toward the rows of tubes. The gnomes floated exactly as before. But they were corpses. Garaki's mind raced. How had he controlled them that night? How had he killed them without physical contact? What is his quirk? His fists tightened once more, though now with calculation rather than grief. Even if his master had gone, even without creating new gnomes, he will continue his research and reach the quirk singularity, one way or another. I will complete your work, he whispered toward the silent laboratory. I will bring about the quirk singularity. His grief reshaped itself into resolve. I will avenge you, he said quietly, eyes hardening. And I will create a being that stands at the summit of this world just as you wished. The silent tubes were as if the remnants of failed creations were bearing witness to a vow that would drag the world toward catastrophe. Chapter 81, Life. 1549 words. With the memories of All for One etched into his mind and his own ability to sense stolen life, Junsei moved from one city to the next. He searched for humans with too much life clinging to them, hiding in warehouses or shady places. He did not care for their stories, dreams or their thoughts. All of it was meaningless, he only cared if they carried abundant life and did not wear the conspicuous attire of heroes. He killed them without question and without hesitation. It was simple. He was correcting the imbalance these humans had caused and simultaneously filled the emptiness. During his hunt, he altered his clothing whenever possible. A different jacket, pair of shoes, hats, or hoodies. He understood how police and heroes operated on patterns and witness accounts. He made certain none could trace and find him easily. Now he walked the streets of Muzutafu. Baggy pants. A loose hoodie concealing his long white hair. It was night. Then he felt it. A presence in a nearby alleyway. It didn't have overwhelming life, but it was still there, thick enough to be noticed. Junsei altered his path immediately. He turned into the alley and halted. A man in a business suit stood with trembling arms extended, pointing a handgun at another man several meters away. The one holding the gun appeared to be an ordinary salaryman. And his hands shook visibly. Opposite him stood a man with a crude, arrogant smile. His arms were transformed, blades protruding where hands should have been. A gangster by posture and expression alike. Junsei's attention was fixed on him. The life surrounding the gangster was dense. The gangster laughed. "A coward like you can't kill," he sneered. "We both know that. So why cause trouble? Hand over the money and drop to your knees to apologize." The salaryman stuttered, voice cracking. I don't dare to kill. But I can punish you." The salaryman closed his eyes before the sound of a gunshot shattered the alley's silence. The gangster jerked as the bullet struck him. He groaned and dropped to one knee. "You bastard," he roared. "You shot me. I'll fucking kill." His words cut into a scream. His blade hands began to change. Within seconds, his arms returned to normal human hands. Junsei's eyes widened slightly because of what he felt. Life was leaving the gangster's body. "My hands," the gangster shrieked. "My quirk. What did you do to me?" The salaryman's voice trembled, yet carried a strange fervor. "You're quirkless. Just like me." "That can't be," the gangster screamed. "What the hell is this?" Junsei's perception sharpened. He scanned the salaryman. There was no life clinging to him. Just as there was now none clinging to the gangster. That had never happened before. The only way to free life is by killing the human. But here, life had been freed, yet the man still breathed. Junsei's mind raced. Was the quirk the anchor? Did losing the quirk free life? If so, how? He stepped forward, unable to remain still. "What did you do to him?" Junsei asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "What did you shoot him with?" The salaryman was startled at his presence. This isn't what it looks like." He shot me," the gangster screamed hysterically. "Now I can't feel my quirk. I can't use it." Junsei ignored him and continued walking. As he passed, the gangster lunged weakly and clutched Junsei's leg. "Please," he begged. "Help me." Junsei did not look down. He swung his arm once. The force sent the gangster flying into the nearby wall. He hit it, then the ground. He didn't move afterward. Junsei's gaze never left the salaryman. The man's face drained of all color. Is he alive?" Junsei repeated. "What did you do to him? What did you shoot him with?" The salaryman's knees buckled. Tears streamed down his face. "Please spare me. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I won't tell anyone about you. Just let me go. Answer me." It was a bullet," the man sobbed. "A quirk-removing bullet. I bought it from a thug for a hefty sum of money." Junsei's eyes narrowed. "How does it work?" "I don't know. I swear I don't know. All I was told, it will remove the quirk without killing the target." Junsei stepped forward and seized him by the collar, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. "You will show me where you obtained it." The salaryman's feet kicked uselessly in the air. Junsei's thoughts churned. The bullet had removed the gangster's quirk. More importantly, it had removed the life bound to that human. Or was life bound to the quirk? If quirks were vessels and life stored within them, then there existed a method to free life from humans without killing the body. There was something deeper that connected life and quirks. Junsei recalled all for one's memories, about memories and personality stored in quirks and the vestige world. That could be the answer to what was going on now, a connection between the two. And someone had already found this, and a way to sever it, more accurately to remove the quirk entirely. Junsei tightened his grip slightly. He needed to understand the how, and find the one who discovered it. And so, Junsei's hunt for the origin of the life-freeing bullet began without pause. The salaryman, trembling and incoherent, led him across the city to a small gang operating from an abandoned warehouse on the opposite side of Muzutafu. The moment the gang members saw the salaryman being dragged forward by the collar, they understood. The man holding him was there most probably for the red bullet. Less than a minute later, Junsei exited the warehouse dragging a different gang member by the neck. Behind him, the salaryman lay shaking in a widening pool of blood. The pattern repeated itself across the night. Warehouse to alley. Alley to bar. Bar to hidden apartment. Junsei tracked the source through layers of thugs and criminals. He offered no words. No threats beyond the immediate. You either showed him where to go or you died. His lack of restraint terrified whoever encountered him. He was not like heroes or police, he didn't demand surrender or speak of justice. He spoke only of direction and death. What would have taken a conventional investigation, weeks of surveillance and paperwork, was resolved before dawn. By early morning, Junsei was walking directly toward the source. The Yakuza, led by Overhaul. As the first light of sunrise crept over the horizon, Junsei arrived before the Yakuza's base. It was a traditional Japanese estate concealed behind a 3-meter-high wall. The structure was old yet meticulously maintained. Junsei did not ring the bell. He leapt, clearing the wall and landing within the front garden. A few Yakuza members were already stationed there. They reacted immediately. Weapons were raised. Guns aimed at him. A towering man, nearly 3 meters tall, stepped forward. His frame was massive, shoulders broad enough to block the path entirely. "Who the hell are you?" the giant demanded. "You're no hero. And you certainly don't look like a cop." Junsei's gaze moved calmly across the courtyard. "This is the Yakuza base?" he asked. "Where Overhaul resides?" The giant narrowed his eyes. "You're looking for the boss. Who the hell are you?" "I want to see him," Junsei replied. "I have questions about the red bullets he has been distributing." One of the armed men behind the giant spoke urgently. "Rikiine, let's capture him for now. We have to prepare for heroes. We don't have time for this." The giant nodded slowly. Someone who barges into another man's home shouldn't expect courtesy. Junsei examined them. Rikiya had a significant life. Of the 3 behind him, 2 held more than average. The last had none. Rikiya extended his enormous hand to seize Junsei. Junsei moved first. He raised his own hand and caught the giant by the head, fingers spreading across the skull and temple. Electricity erupted instantly. It discharged directly into the man's brain. Rikiya screamed in pain. His massive body convulsed violently. The scent of burnt flesh spread through the garden as thin black smoke rose from his scalp. Within seconds, the convulsions stopped. Junsei flung the corpse aside. The giant's body struck the ground heavily, lifeless. The 3 remaining men froze. Shock immobilized them. "Yuba." One began. He did not finish. A thin, compressed blood projectile pierced straight through his head, exiting cleanly. The second man fell the same way, a silent collapse before he could process what he had seen. The third was struck in the leg. He screamed and crumpled to the ground, clutching the pierced limb. Through the pain, he lifted his weapon and attempted to aim. A second blood bullet struck his hand. Fingers severed instantly, scattering across the ground. The gun dropped uselessly. The man screamed again, writhing. Junsei walked past him without haste. "Stay down," he said evenly. "I will not kill you. You do not have life." The Yakuza member groaned, clutching the ruin of his hand and leg. Junsei did not look back. He stepped toward the house and entered. The garden, moments ago guarded and orderly, now was a bloody mess. Chapter 82, A World Without Quirks. 1817 words. Junsei had barely taken a few steps inside the house when 4 Yakuza emerged from around a corner ahead of him. All 4 raised their guns instantly. Junsei lifted his hand. 3 compressed blood bullets shot forward in perfect alignment. Each struck the hand holding the guns. Weapons clattered to the floor alongside severed fingers. The men screamed. Junsei's voice remained level. "Which one of you is Overhaul?" The man in the lead, pale and shaking from pain, forced himself upright. "You'll pay for this," he spat. "The boss will make you." Junsei fired again, 4 precise shots to the heads. The only sound in the corridor was the bodies hitting the floor. Junsei stepped over the bodies. He did not need them. He needed only one person. He extended his senses. The house was empty, he couldn't feel life anywhere. But he could feel life some distance underneath him. There were multiple presences. Junsei moved around the house for 2 minutes searching for a visible staircase. None appeared. The architecture was traditional and deceptively simple. When his sight failed him, he switched to rely on his sense of smell. He inhaled slowly as he started another round of searching. After 2 minutes, he found human scent concentrated in one section of wall. The strength of the smell showed frequent contact. Junsei drove his fist into the wall. Wood shattered and behind it a metal door was blasted open. Behind the wall, there was a concealed passage descending downward. He stepped through and began his descent. The staircase led into underground corridors reinforced by concrete and metal. He walked forward without haste, orienting himself toward the strongest life signature ahead. After several turns, 2 figures appeared. One wore black leather-like attire. The other was a masked man. The one in black declared theatrically, "This is as far as you go." Junsei recognized him immediately from the memories of AFO. "You are Twice," Junsei said calmly. "From Tamura's group." Twice stiffened. "That's right. We are." He paused. His eyes met Junsei's. "Hold on," Twice muttered. "Your eyes look familiar." Silence stretched for half a second. Twice recalled the only other person with these glowing cold eyes. Fear began to creep into him, as he realized who was standing in front of him. Soon panic replaced theatrics. "It's him!" Twice screamed, turning and sprinting down the corridor at full speed. "Save me! You damn Yakuza, save me!" Junsei narrowed his eyes and pointed at Twice. A bullet of blood shot toward him, and the masked man jumped in the way to block it. The bullet struck the man and almost immediately turned into a clay-like substance. Just then, the corridor ahead shifted suddenly. Walls slid into place, sealing the path. At the same moment, the wall to Junsei's right exploded outward and a masked man charged through, fist punching straight at Junsei's head. Junsei sidestepped and counterpunched. His fist was blocked by a golden barrier that materialized between them, absorbing the blow. The masked attacker barked, "You didn't need to do that. I was handling him." A smaller masked man stepped into view behind him. "You are the spear," the smaller one said calmly. "I am the shield. It is only natural that I defend you." Junsei looked between them. "Is either of you Overhaul?" "No," the larger man growled. "You will not see the boss. We will end you here." The smaller one asked. "Why are you attacking us? You don't look like a hero." "I want information about the red bullets." "The quirk-removing bullets," the larger one replied sharply. "So you're after Eri?" "You're speaking too much," the smaller one warned. "It's fine," the larger man said. "He won't leave this place alive anyway." Junsei registered the name. Eri. So that was the source. He moved. In a single instant, he appeared before the larger masked man, and threw a punch with full force. The golden barrier manifested again. This time, it shattered. Junsei's fist crushed through it and impacted the man's chest, caving it inward. The force carried him backward through the very hole he had entered from, lifeless before he struck the ground. Junsei did not slow. He pivoted and closed the distance to the smaller one. The man barely began to react before Junsei's fist struck his head. The impact ended him instantly. In less than a second, both were dead. Junsei did not look at their bodies again. He turned to the wall that had sealed Twice's path and punched through it, reopening the corridor. Debris scattered as he stepped forward. After only a few steps, the entire corridor began shaking and changing like waves of sea. Junsei halted. He extended his senses again. A life signature pulsed from within the wall to his left. Without hesitation, he pivoted and drove his fist into that exact point. Concrete shattered. His arm pierced through into flesh. Blood sprayed from the rupture in the wall. Junsei withdrew his fist slowly. The life signature faded immediately. Someone had possessed a quirk allowing them to merge with and manipulate the structure itself. That person was now dead, and with it the corridor steadied again. Junsei resumed walking forward. A few minutes later, Junsei stepped into an open underground hall. It was wide and reinforced. A group of masked men stood before him, weapons trained toward him. The man at the front wore a plague-like mask and stood with composed authority. According to the League of Villains, he said evenly, "You are the one who killed AFO." "Is that true?" Junsei answered yes. The masked man continued, "Why are you attacking us? You are no hero. We have nothing to do with AFO. I am certain we have never crossed paths before. Yet you barged in and slaughtered my men." His voice hardened. "Give me a reason before we kill you." Junsei studied him. "You are Overhaul." The man nodded once. Junsei spoke plainly. "I learned of your red bullets. I came here for them." Overhaul's eyes narrowed behind the mask. "Are you here to stop me as well? Do you fear them? Do you fear losing your power?" "No," Junsei replied. "I want to understand how they work." There was a pause. "You do not intend to stop their creation?" Overhaul asked carefully. "No," Junsei said again. "Which one of you is Eri?" A subtle tension moved through the hall. Overhaul's gaze sharpened. He studied Junsei for several seconds before speaking. "Why do you want Eri?" Junsei answered, "I know Eri is the creator of the bullets." Overhaul's head tilted slightly. "She is not the creator," he corrected. "I am." "Your subordinates implied otherwise." "You misunderstand," Overhaul said. "I created the drug and the bullets using Eri's quirk. I am the one you are looking for." Junsei said. "If that is true, how do they work?" A faint edge entered Overhaul's voice. "You attack my home, kill my men, and expect answers." Junsei's eyes remained cold. "You will tell me," he said evenly, "or I will devour you. Either way, I will learn." A silence followed. Overhaul recalled rumors relayed through an associate embedded within the police force. A story whispered in disgust and fear that AFO had been eaten in front of heroes and police. He measured Junsei again. Despite the strong front he was putting, he was not confident in his ability to defeat the person who had ended the underworld's ruler. Overhaul chose caution. "Why do you want this knowledge?" he asked carefully. "What do you gain?" "I want to understand how quirks function," Junsei replied. "And whether they can be erased from all humans." Overhaul's eyes widened faintly. Unexpectedly, their goals overlapped. Overhaul saw a rare opportunity. Overhaul raised a hand, signaling his subordinates to lower their weapons. They hesitated but obeyed. "Perhaps we need not be enemies," he said slowly. "I intend to end the age of quirks using this drug. We may be able to cooperate." The men behind him exchanged stunned glances. Junsei remained unmoved. "Not interested." "Explain how it works." Overhaul answered carefully, "I isolate and refine a portion of Eri's quirk. It is converted into a drug designed to target and dismantle the quirk factor within the body. It removes the quirk permanently." The process is complex and requires multiple stages of preparation. It is time-consuming. At present, I can only produce bullets capable of affecting individuals. His tone sharpened. My ultimate objective is to discover a method to apply it universally to all of humanity. Junsei considered this. Junsei asked, "What about the vestige world? Does it get destroyed with the quirk?" Overhaul frowned slightly. "I do not know what you mean by vestige world. But if it is something related to the quirk, then yes. How long until you can create a method that affects all humans?" "I do not know," Overhaul admitted. "It is not simple. But I am progressing." Junsei spoke decisively. "Show me your work. Show me how you create it. If you are truthful, I will leave." Overhaul exhaled quietly. "That may prove difficult. Heroes and police are approaching. Thanks to your intrusion, my defenses have collapsed. It is hard to escape as is, let alone if I am staying here to show you." He met Junsei's gaze directly. "If you assist us and repel them long enough for my men and me to withdraw, I will show you everything you want. If your aim is to remove quirks, then let us set aside hostility and collaborate for a world without quirks." Junsei hesitated. He extended his senses to see if someone was coming near this place. And he found multiple people gathered beyond the estate walls. One he recognized due to its massive volume of life. Overhaul was not lying, at least about that. Junsei did not wish to engage in an open battle with heroes. It would draw attention, escalate conflict, and complicate his movement across cities. Moreover, he didn't want to be with humans again or protect them. But if Overhaul's research was legitimate, then the possibility existed to strip humans of quirks entirely. To free life and weaken humans at the same time. Junsei pondered it for a moment, then made his decision. "They are already here," Junsei said. "Take your men and leave. I will stop them." Relief entered Overhaul's posture. He inclined his head. "Despite what you have done," he said, "I hope you survive. I want us to work together." His voice hardened with conviction. "So we may rid this world of these damn quirks once and for all." Overhaul turned and departed with his remaining subordinates, moving swiftly through the underground exits. Junsei remained where he stood, listening to the approaching presence above. For now, he would become the obstacle between heroes and the men who might be able to end the quirk age. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.